across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. Thank you to Julia. She's back on Monday right here on Talk. Lots to get through this afternoon. The Ministry of Justice this is fascinating, is piloting the UK's first proximity tagging programme. So this initiative will protect rape and domestic abuse victims by continuously monitoring offenders and alerting probation officers 24/7. This sounds great for protecting victims, but it does beg a different kind of question. What else could come from this? Is this sort of the introduction of nationwide surveillance by the back door? Be careful what you wish for. Details to come also this afternoon, and here we go. Keir Starmer, it's another U-turn on the way. He might concede to Angela Rayner's criticism on migrant residency reforms, but Downing Street does refuse to confirm whether it will proceed with Home Secretary's plans to extend the residency period required for 1.6 million current UK migrants to gain permanent settlement. This is an absolute mess. And here we go again. Keir Starmer, he's bowing to the desires and the left-wing needs of those iffy backbenchers. And the left are absolutely gunning to rejoin the European Union as Green leader Zach Polansky, Chancellor Rachel Reeves and the Mayor of London Sadiq Khan all weigh in on the argument. We know where their heart really is on this one, don't we? We'll have details on that as well. Oh, we're telling you about lab-grown meat as well. Fancy a slice? Details to come later. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Coming up on 1:05, welcome to the empire of afternoon common sense. So much to get through. Is AI the future of justice? Is technology the future of justice? Are we now firmly heading towards a world like this?
A future where freedom becomes slavery, where privacy is forbidden, the past forgotten, and where living people simply vanish.
Yeah, 1984. Be careful what you wish for. This initiative sounds like a smart move. Hear me out on this. Sounds like something that's very positive for victims. It sounds like something most people would endorse. But like all things in life, and in particular the world of justice, these initiatives do sometimes need a bit of serious scrutiny, and that's what we're about this afternoon. I'm referring to this. Rape and domestic abuse victims will be tracked to prevent them ever coming into contact with their attackers. So just listen to that sentence again. Rape and domestic abuse victims will be tracked to prevent them ever coming into contact with their attackers. So this is a pilot, okay? They are deploying this thing called proximity tagging, which enables probation officers, could be the police, to know 24 hours a day if an offender comes within a preset distance of their victim, a victim of domestic abuse, stalking or sexual assault. Now, whether that is just their victim or whether it's any victim remains to be seen, because, of course, once you open the gates on this, you could wind up in a very different place from the one you intended to begin with. So here's how it will work. The victim of such an attack will have a GPS locator on their phone. The offender will have a tag. That means that law enforcement are able to intervene if those two things come together. Something will bleep, the victim will know, oh my goodness, there's a bleep, it's gone off, call the police potentially will already be on it anyway, and they'll be able to step in and save the day. 0344 499 1000. This sounds like a great idea, right? I'm a bit uncomfortable with the fact that you put some of the onus of this is on the victim. I mean, many will not unreasonably simply say, well, why don't you just put the offender away for a longer period of time? Aren't there other ways you can tag an offender? This is a 5 million quid's worth of pilot scheme. It's going to be launched later this year, part of an expansion of tagging by Labour. Now, there is the central point of the question, really. Is technology, is AI the future of justice? I remember saying this on air, absolutely serious, probably 15, 20 years ago, that we won't really need prisons for the most horrific of kind of crimes, because everything else, every form of punishment will merely be based on your digital footprint. And you'll go to court, they'll say, yes, Mr. Smithers, you are guilty. We are turning off all of your communication for 2 years. So like a digital lockdown. But of course, as we move into the digital world, that's not the fact you can't play Pac-Man on a Friday evening with your mates. This is something much deeper than that. This is about not being able to do anything. You can't spend any money. You can't even go online. You can't look at the internet. You wouldn't be able to. The internet will only work for you specifically if it has Face ID. And if the Face ID has been turned off, you won't be. It doesn't matter where you go. Your mate can bring his laptop round. It just won't work. Technology will stop you from functioning in the normal sense. You are essentially in digital prison. 0344 499 1000. So just think about that, because the other thing we talk about a lot, tagging to me is a great, I'm not sure about the victim being part of the equation, but certainly someone, you know, a kid who's stopped for not carrying a knife, for example. They don't send every person who is seen carrying a knife, like a pen knife, to jail, because there are too many of them. So what do? I'll tell you what you do. You tag them and you curfew them. And you keep to that. That surely is the most sensible, advanced way that you would deal with that. If prisons are too full, or indeed not appropriate, possibly a bit of the two, tag and curfew. That's the future. Is technology the future of justice? 0344 499 1000. I also want to bring this story in as well. Keir Starmer opening the door for concessions over reforms to the rights of 1.6 million migrants to stay in the UK. This comes after criticism from Angela Rayner. His backbenchers are not happy. Among them, Stella Creasy, the MP for Ineptitude East.
The thing I would say that's fundamentally un-British about what the Home Secretary is doing is that she's doing it by the back door in small committees in Parliament through legislation that we will never debate. Democracy has always been the cornerstone of both, you know, socialism and the British Parliament. Without it, we can't actually scrutinise whether these are a good idea. So, of course, Angela has to give a speech. Those of us like me who've tried to raise concerns are left with no other option but to try to get that debate in Parliament so that we can actually look at this.
And here's the problem the Prime Minister has. Stand by for screeching U-turn number, what are we up to, 15 or something? Something of that nature. Downing Street repeatedly refused to say whether the government would press ahead with Shabana Mahmood's plans to increase the time it takes for migrants already in the UK to qualify for permanent settlement. Angela Rayner, of course, we mentioned this yesterday, has championed, well, she was clearly on manoeuvres, a potential leadership contest by the left, endorsed by the left, said on Tuesday that plans were un-British and pulled the rug from underneath hard-working families. Stella Creasy talks about these people are our communities. Any climb down on migration, of course, will be seized upon by just about everyone. They will say Keir Starmer is weak, but of course he's playing to the left-wing gap. Will anybody ever sort this thing out? I mean, Keir Starmer is in an absolute mess, and we know that after May, there's every chance he's going to face a leadership challenge after those local elections. They are set to lose hundreds of council seats, particularly to Reform UK. It's made migration a key campaign issue. It should also be noted, by the way, just for a bit of extra information, Andy Burnham has backed Angela Rayner on this point. Stella Creasy backs Angela Rayner. This just gives you an idea of the kind of characters that we're dealing with on this. The Mayor of Greater Manchester said Labour would do well to listen to the Prime Minister's former deputy, who warned the government's proposed migration crackdown was unjust. Seriously, that's where they're at. Thoughts on that as well? 0344 499 1000 is where you'll find us. Particularly that question, is technology the future of justice? Let's get a word on this. Peter Barnes is with us, the political strategist. Peter, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Sorry I can't be with you in the studio. It's one of those days.
I thought you were in the studio. I just thought you were hiding somewhere.
Well, you know, Yeah, I'm always... people think I live in that building, but no, I do actually have a home.
Well, it's a bit of breaking news for everyone there. Always good to have you with us in whatever form it takes, Peter. I mean, let's look at this story. I said at the beginning, you know, if you're tagging a rapist, so they've come out of jail, they've served their sentence, and then the tag continues, one would assume for a period of time, as distinct for life. Most people understand that and say, well, that's clearly a good thing. But, of course, the victim will also have to be part of the technological equation on this as well. That does divide the room a bit.
Oh, without a doubt. And I mean, I kind of get it that obviously you would have to tag the person so you know where one is in relation to the other. Otherwise, just tagging one person wouldn't make any sense. It would just be a dot on a map moving around. You want to have the other kind of bit to know where it's near or where it's not near. So, yeah, it is a really awkward one. But I do think, going back to your bigger question about the kind of AI and the technology and the future of justice, it was always going to be because it was cheaper. Realistically, it's cheaper now to track someone than it is to put them in prison. That is the fundamental reality. It's not because it's, you know, it's more advanced. It's because it's literally the cheapest thing to do. And we are running out of prison space. Well, we don't have any, to be honest. And more importantly, the nature of the crimes that people want to see tackled, they are quite hefty. There's quite a large number of them, and also therefore there's not enough prison spaces, so it's easy to then have these kind of tagging programs and all the rest of it. There are other bits in this announcement I actually don't dislike. There's £700 million for new officers. There's 1,300 new probation officers, because the reason we're in a lot of trouble for this is because we gutted probation services. We kept prisoners on the prison cycle. We didn't give them a way out. Probation services was the way of doing that. We cut that very early in 2010 for the austerity measures, and now we're living in the consequences of it. So there's a lot really to go at. But on this particular one of the surveillance and the way that they're going to use the victims, this has to be very carefully thought out. But given the fact that this is a government that let out the wrong people from prison and does everything wrong that it could possibly imagine doing wrong, this is just going to be a catastrophe.
And there's the problem. I wonder whether the tagging thing, though, Peter, on a wider issue, not just this specific area of rape victims and domestic abuse victims, and we all want to find better ways to deal with that, but whether tagging is tagging the answer to most of our problems. Somebody here, Becca, says we should use the American model of house arrest. It would free up prisons, places for low-level crimes. Unfortunately, we haven't got a good enough police force to have this in our country, or maybe a big enough one for that matter. But there's something in that, Peter.
Oh, yeah, the problem is we don't have enough houses. That's also another problem.
Well, that's true. Got to have a house to be under house arrest.
Exactly. But I do think that this is the way it's going. But like I said, not because it's the right thing to do, it's because it's the only tool at the government's disposal now, because yet again, we have chronically underfunded the thing that we actually now need. And yeah, this is the era of consequences, as I like to call it, coming back to bite. I do think there are better ways to do it on certain crimes, but on certain things, for example, things that often affect middle-class people, reputational kind of risk is a very big motivator. So it's why you have people in high vis doing litter picking where they speed. It's look at those people. It's the embarrassment factor of it. If this is like a big clunky kind of surveillance tracker thing, say if you've been, fly tipping or whatever, that embarrassment is a very powerful motivator. It's all part of what was known as the nudge department under Boris Johnson at number 10 for the COVID. A lot of this kind of ideas have been rolled out into other bits of the government, whilst everybody was, trying to work out what a woman was.
Yeah, indeed. And they are still trying to work that out. Let's
Sadly.
move to this one, Peter. Sir Keir Starmer may concede on permanent settlement reforms for the 1.6 million migrants. This is after the Angela Rayner criticism. Downing Street would not confirm if Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's contentious plans to extend the qualifying time would actually go ahead. This is Angela Rayner, of course, we're talking about. The same Angela Rayner's plot for leadership. We can see that much, even though she previously said this.
I have no desire to go for the leadership of the Labour Party. My desire is to deliver for the people of this country who have given me opportunities beyond what I could have dreamed of.
Yeah, that's not true, Peter, of course. She wants the job.
Yes, if you believe that, I'm the Queen of Sheba. I mean, it's just a ridiculous
Well,
statement.
I mean, I have referred to you as that many times, but that's another story.
It's not the first time somebody has, I thought it was you. But I will say, this actually has nothing to do with Angela Rayner, by the way. Everybody keeps saying it is because she's latched onto it. This was never going to pass in the first place, and everybody said at the time it was announced, it was never going to get through the backbenches. This is actually Stella Creasy, who you mentioned earlier, and people like her on the backbenches that have been leading the charge, not Angela Rayner. My thing is, and I was speaking to a very high-up Labour strategist literally just last night in Parliament, and he was saying that basically she's somewhat of a spent force now because she's got all the tax problems. When she tried to announce the leadership bid, that had a tax problem. She's also got the problem of she's the face of the Islamophobia bill, she's the face of workers' rights bill, and she's the face of the renters' rights bill. Those things have killed off pretty much most of the economy. She's what we call saddled. She's done, I'm afraid, and it's not an accident. Kemi Badenoch pointed out this is what was going to happen to her when she became the deputy leader. The thing is, what Angela Rayner is doing is she does what Nigel Farage did back in the early days. Find a cause, make a lot of noise about it, and the media will think you're the one leading it. She's not. She's riding the wave. She's not creating the wave. And that's a really important distinction about who's actually saying what. Because you mentioned Andy Burnham there.
Yeah.
If you actually listen to what he said you should listen to the former deputy leader. He didn't say, the Labour member for this or anything like that. The former. And that's a really important word. Andy Burnham is very good at these kind of games. He's played them before. For me, I think this is her last-ditch attempt to kind of force the Labour Party MPs to have a vote of no confidence before the May locals, because I don't think she's actually going to get anywhere in the leadership race. I think she's done.
So that's interesting what you said about Burnham. So by mentioning the word former, you are reminding everybody that she's a spent force, as it were.
Yeah, you're asking people to remember, why is she the former?
Yeah.
Why? That's the thing you've got to... It's actually a subtle reminder of the fact that she's got 3 housing scandals and she's a working-class girl, apparently, that uses a multi-million-pound wealth fund management firm to hide tax. So, yeah. That's why he's done it. This is not actually people being friends with each other. This is actually a kind of very sharp elbows at the front of the queue. Andy Burnham has not given up his ambitions to become leader of the Labour Party. Be under no kind of doubt about that. He still wants that job.
Yeah, I think you're bang on that one. Listen, Peter, stay with us. There's more stories still to come. Over to you, 0344 499 1000. Labour's migration reforms, it's in an absolute mess. Looks like a U-turn is coming round the corner from Keir Starmer anytime soon. Your responses to that, how should they deal with it? It's the retrospective aspect that seems to have upset the likes of Stella Creasy and Andy Burnham. But the wider issue, which I think is just utterly fascinating in terms of I suppose examples of the sort of era we are in. We're in the digital world, we're in the AI world. Is it therefore reasonable to suggest that technology is the future of our justice system? Tagging and the like, remote devices that ping an alert at a moment's notice for a variety of things, turning off your digital capability as a form of punishment, your ability to spend, your ability to even surf the internet. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
23 minutes after 1 o'clock, Peter Barnes is with us. Let's just have a quick look at this story, Peter. Kemi Badenoch speaking this morning, launching the Tories' local election campaign, but something didn't go quite right. Here's what happened when Tory MP James Cleverly came to the stage. Let's have a look.
But just in case anyone has forgotten just how good she is, let's just remind ourselves with a quick look at her best bits.
It's going to be long. It's going to be long.
This is where the video comes on, please.
UVT.
I'm going to give it one more second for the video. Actually, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Forget the video.
Oh, it's a bit of a cringe moment, Peter, especially when it's introduced. Let's have a look at your best bits. Oh, there are none.
Yes, it's the rather kind of second-hand embarrassment that you get from that. You're like, please make it stop and can we change the channel? I mean, I've been involved in a lot of these things, and technology is always the one that lets people down at the end of the day. And I thought James Cleverly handled this quite well. I will say, though, just to give the Tories a bit of credit, that the first person's party even to come out with any policies for the local elections, which aren't that far away now. They're running on things like 10,000 new police officers, reduced business rates, all this kind of stuff. It's actually quite a comprehensive package. It's somewhat laying down the gauntlet to all the other parties to say, well, we're the ones that, we're not just going to whinge, we're going to do something about it. It's time for everybody to step up. It's not a bad tactic from Kemi. It's what she did over the conference speeches and all that kind of thing. She comes with packages now. It's not just one big shiny thing, which is what all the other parties are going to do, or they're just going to, hark on about how terrible Keir Starmer is. I think, despite the fact these are going to be incredibly important local elections, the standard is going to be shockingly poorer than normal.
Yeah, indeed. There will be an AV company, as they're called, that they would have hired in to,
I know the particular one.
Put the mics up and all the rest of it. Somewhere will be squirming like a good one at this, and I'm sure they'll go, well, no, I pressed the button. Nothing happened. It'll be in that
I've been that person. I've been that person.
Peter's
I've been that person when you cannot find the remote, when you really need to find the remote.
Yes.
And these kind of speeches, I won't say which one. And it's not great, and everybody remembers you as you're that guy.
Oh, you're the guy that didn't press the button, aren't you?
Yeah,
no, I did press the button.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Let's move to this story. It seems that the left are turning their backs on democracy. The leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, has said the Greens would rejoin the EU if they got into power. We know that Rachel Reeves also admitted she wished Brexit had never happened. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, he said this.
We should rejoin the single market. The single market and customs union we should try and do this Parliament. And then we should, as a Labour Party, fight the next general election with a clear manifesto commitment. A vote for Labour means we would rejoin the European Union.
Will they go for that, do you think, Peter?
Yes, because it's the only way they could stop the Greens. I don't think they're even going to do what Sadiq Khan just said there. They're just going to rejoin. They don't need a vote. They don't need a referendum. But don't forget, these are merely advisory. They're not legally binding. You need an act of parliament. He has a whopping great big majority of very scared backbenchers that would like to keep their jobs. What's the best way to undermine a progressive? Be more progressive. So therefore, what you do is you join the European Union. Yeah. This is what most of the Labour Party want. It's what most Labour Party voters probably want. And it's a nice little thing. Is look how radical we are. Look how we really took it to Farage, and we're really standing up to Reform and the Tories and all those nasty right-wingers that believe in democracy. This is what we're going to do. We're saving the country this way, and they're going to use the economy as the springboard to do it.
Do you know what? I had considered this previously, that they might go in that direction in a second term, but of course they might need to do it before a potential second term. I don't think they're going to win, by the way, but that would be, you grasp at anything. I mean, why would they not? Why would they not?
Yeah. this is always what many of us thought, that first term was to bring us into alignment, so to do exactly what Sadiq Khan has just said. Then second term, you either run on a referendum or you run on a kind of we're just going to rejoin ticket kind of thing, and that's how we would rejoin in the second term, probably halfway through. That was the long-term plan. Everybody knew it. It was the worst-kept secret in Westminster. However, obviously, again, it's Keir Starmer, so competency is not great, so therefore this is what they're going to have to do. And it is yet again one by-election. It's not only dictating our foreign policy, it's going to dictate our economic and trade policy for the near future, if not a very, very long time, because I do believe two things are going to happen. We're going to have an amnesty for all asylum seekers to clear the backlog before the next general election, and we're probably going to see further integration, if not fully rejoining the European Union.
Let's move to this story, Peter. The Global Terrorism Index, sounds horrific, but there is a use to this, reports that online gaming platforms are quickly radicalising young people, sometimes within just a matter of weeks, contributing to things like lone wolf attacks. Let's have a listen to the Prime Minister speaking about that issue of online safety.
We need to go at speed. Everybody, I think, pretty much, perhaps the platform providers are the exception, knows that we need better protection for children. We haven't got it. The status quo is not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, tell us something we didn't know in some respects, Pete, but this is where we're at. You know, there will be, you only need you don't need very many radicalised individuals of whatever stripe or opinion or reasoning to cause a problem. And online gaming platforms apparently are a great target for those who want to radicalise someone.
Yeah, they have been for some time. It's realistically, it's where a lot of the culture wars started, was actually this thing called Gamergate, and it was all about the kind of sanitization of the gaming industry, and it was all these kind of issues about radicalization and the kind of chat rooms and what was being said and all this kind of stuff. It's where a lot of the culture wars, like I say, started. However, my big problem is Keir Starmer's biggest threat in his head is far-right fascism, not radical Islamist terrorism, which is not being radicalized through online gaming. What is actually happening is terrorists are using gaming platforms because of their encrypted kind of chat systems and things like that. That is a problem, and I do agree we should clamp down on a lot of this. But this idea of won't somebody think of the children? We've got to move at speed. Everybody agrees with me. They're quite big, sweeping statements that have absolutely no evidential foundation to them. And I would point out the fact that Reddit just today got given a whopping fine because they didn't follow the Online Safety Act. I've got to imagine a lot of gaming platforms, having seen that, are going to do whatever the government tells them to do, because most of them can't afford to lose that amount of money.
Yeah.
This is not an accident. This is yet again more control, and they're using kids to control us further. They're not protecting kids in any way, shape or form.
On that point, Peter, great to have you on. We will speak again very soon. He is Peter Barnes, political strategist right across all the big stories. Over to you on anything you've heard there, in particular those two subjects we started with at the beginning. The reforms, can we call it reforms if it's not going to happen? The potential reforms of the Home Secretary about settled status for immigrants. The backbenchers in the Labour Party have absolutely discombobulated. They're crabbing it down the stairs like something from The Exorcist, discombobulating, climbing the walls, howling at the moon. How dare you tinker with migrant rights, seems to be the cry of the day. Thoughts on that? And do you know what? Starmer will capitulate on this, I promise you. This will be U-turn number, is it 15 or 16? Can't really keep up. You get the idea. We'll talk more about that and we'll get your calls. And that question, is technology the future of justice? Thoughts on both of those things and more comment coming up. It's 1:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This in from Wayne, who says, afternoon, Col. The idea of victims and perps being tracked, absolutely and totally a waste of money, as well as a ridiculous breach of the victim's privacy. That's really a lot of focus from comments coming in from you on that point. As a police control room supervisor for the best part of 20 years, I can tell you it would be response officers who would have to deal with any vicinity alarm that might go off, and police haven't got enough officers for grade 1 jobs like crime in progress, high risk missing from homes, domestic violence in progress, etc., let alone attending anything that may or may not happen. Any vicinity alarm will have an incident created and will sit on a dispatch queue for hours, if not days, at which point the dispatcher will look at the job, think to themselves, this is 10 hours old now, and we'll just close the job. You can absolutely see that happening in practice, how that would manifest. They did talk about probation officers getting the alert. Now, obviously, as well as police, does that make it any more credible, if that's the right way to look at it, if you had those that work in that element of justice? Could that help along the point that reasonably Wayne has just made? So this is the Ministry of Justice. They're piloting. Later this year, they're going to put this into action, the UK's first proximity tagging programme, so it will protect victims. This is the idea, protect victims of rape and domestic abuse by continuously monitoring offenders, alerting officers, probation officers, 24/7 if those convicted of domestic abuse, stalking, sexual assault enter a victim's predefined exclusion zone. That, of course, means that the victim has to have a setup on their phone as well. It sounds great, protecting victims. What else might this lead to in terms of how we dispense justice? In a moment, the Freedom Campaigner Montgomery Toms will join us. First, our friend Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Afternoon to you, Peter. I mean, the old days of going to catch a tow rag, because you know he's come out. We'll keep our eye on him. You know, the local Bobby on the beat knows where he lives, though there'll be eyes and ears all over the place. Those days have kind of gone a bit. Is this just the natural evolution of crime and justice, or is this something we should concern ourselves with?
It's a technical evolution, and it is very much something that we should concern ourselves with. As the government trail that it's a way to protect victims of rape, sexual assault and domestic violence, well, the best way to protect those victims is to have the offenders incarcerated in a prison. That's the best way. But of course, successive governments have failed to build sufficient prison capacity, and so they're turning to this. Now, tagging has had some success in the past, but that is generally speaking when people break the law, perhaps for the first time. Professional people, your police officers, lawyers, accountants, solicitors, those kind of people, they get a prison term and they are absolutely determined never to go to jail again. So when they're released, sometimes early, they have a tag with very strict conditions placed upon it, like a curfew and where they can go and the such like. In those kind of situations, they're very useful and they're very effective because people are determined not to go back to prison. But when you're talking about career criminals, people that perhaps steal for a living, they might have alcohol or drug issues, then the breaches that are going to be committed will be so numerous that your former police call dispatcher, Wayne, when he messaged you in this afternoon, was absolutely on the money. This will, in fact, end up being a waste of money.
Yeah, and there's the problem, isn't it? Because it you know, these things, these initiatives may sound good on paper, and I'm sure those that put them together, Peter, do so with, you know, with care and attention. They want to help solve something. But, of course, the manifestation of a policy is very different from what it looks like written down and discussed in a meeting room. When you start to get to the coalface of the issue, you really can see the point that Wayne made, which is these things coming up and then getting put on the back burner.
Of course, if there's a stabbing and there's a victim that needs urgent attention and somebody on the run with a knife, the police are going to drop everything and focus on that, understandably so.
Yeah.
But let's also remember here that the companies that have been doing the research on this and are going to be rolled out with multi-million pound contracts are the big companies that already do so much of the work way below standard within the criminal justice system. For example, companies that don't get prisoners to court on time, so cases collapse or are delayed or are remanded further, and the such like. And I wonder, when the research is done by investigative journalists into who's got these contracts, how many politicians will be sitting on the board of some of those companies, I wonder?
Yeah, I wonder too. Peter, thank you as ever. Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective, on the practicalities of something like this. But you are forced to wonder, you know, that wider question when we asked at the beginning, is technology the future of justice? You say, well, it's kind of got to be, hasn't it? You look at the capability of AI and what it can do now. And remember, this is, I keep saying this is week one of AI. We haven't even started the journey yet. So imagine, fast forward 5 years, how that's going to interact with crime, punishment and justice. You absolutely know it's going to form a part of so many layers of our lives. I see no reason why that wouldn't be one of them. But is that the answer? Your thoughts on that? Montgomery Toms is a freedom campaigner. Good to have you with us on this issue. Of course, like so many of these, I think it's the Benjamin Franklin quote about security and the like that always springs to mind. It, you know, it sounds like a great idea, and you know, but it is sort of be careful what you wish for in some respects, because of course with technology such as this, there may well be some pluses to it, but of course surrendering freedom or privacy inevitably is part and parcel of what happens with these kind of schemes. What are your thoughts? Good afternoon.
Well, thanks for having me on. Essentially, it goes. I'm going to bang the same old drum. It's mission creep. I'm gravely concerned about what this kind of thing can lead to. And I think that we always have to ask the question. You hear the term criminal, but what does that really mean these days? You know, would you like to have criminals locked up? Well, absolutely. If I say something hurty on the internet, does that make me a criminal? Well, these days, possibly yes. And I can tell you, in my experience as somebody who is out in the general public all the time now, and I'm going to a lot of universities actually and debating with young students about issues around free speech. I have been placed under investigation very recently, where I have to now go up to Liverpool for a so-called voluntary interview, otherwise the Met Police will drive me up personally, because I will quote, what I said was deemed offensive, so I've been placed under investigation under the Public Order Act. Wow. Now, the repercussions of this investigation may well be nothing, but with something as simple as a tag or something like a curfew, that is a blatant attack on free speech. So we're already seeing, without this being imposed and without facial recognition, as another example, being rolled out as severely as it's soon going to be if we don't stop it, we're already absorbing and observing the problems with mission creep and how things like this will be weaponized against the British public who are behaving lawfully. We're not suspects, we're not walking barcodes, we're not criminals, and I just don't think that this is coming from a place of genuine good intention. It's going to be weaponized and used against the average British public.
What about, I mean, if it works, however, if this one initiative works really well, someone's let out of jail, they're given a tag, their victim is given a kind of an app, if you like, on their phone, and it's going to ping if that person comes within 5 miles or whatever the outlined kind of distance is. I mean, many would say, well, that's a good thing, right? Well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, well, I think it was just touched on before I came on. You know, how many times is that going to go off, and how much time is that going to demand from the police to then address situations like this? I mean, we've got a situation where our justice system, which is one of the cornerstones of what it is to be English, right, with common law, the Magna Carta, and innocent before proven guilty, where David Lammy wants to erode that bit by bit and take juries away from the public. We're seeing the same sort of mentality and attitude within the police force, where it's like, let's just find the quickest and easiest solution here because we have failed, because we have been prioritizing the wrong thing. We've had so much energy put in the direction of things like DEI, but we've got not enough energy being put in the direction of dealing with knife crime, for example. So it's not our problem. It's the British public. It's not our fault if they are failing to do their job. We shouldn't be penalised and scrutinised and potentially be pushed down a really dangerous avenue because the police have essentially misjudged situation. If there are, for example, offenders out there that shouldn't be out there, guess what? They should be serving their prison time, not let out early, as Keir Starmer has done previously last year, letting people out when they shouldn't be allowed out because we need to free up the prisons. They failed, therefore the British public then have to enter a very concerning system to which we do not trust the state, and I think a lot of people do not trust the police. So I would say, let's just wind the clock back a little bit and fix things from the root of the problem rather than trying to supply some nonsense solution which is actually going to end up being far more problematic for our freedom and rights.
Got it. Montgomery Toms, thank you for your time. Always good to talk. Freedom campaigner on this issue. Very, very hesitant about the, firstly, the potential failures, specifically the overarching story. That's why this is interesting. This is a very specific story about domestic abuse victims, rape victims, those that have been victims of sex crimes, generally speaking. That's where this is kind of being earmarked, this area. So on the face of it, that's good. But where does technology go next in terms of the justice system? That's really the crucial bit. V says, reference tagging, good idea for criminals. However, what happens when governments want to push it out for all of us, for example, if there's any unrest in the country, and stop information being shared with certain groups? Also, won't this just be added to the digital ID? Well, that's exactly where we're at, isn't it? I mean, it's a little bit like when somebody invented, I don't know, it was Babbage or whoever it was, the computer chip. The minute that was first available, then the implementations for it just sprung up in gazillion-fold, and suddenly, almost out of nowhere, relatively speaking, in terms of the journey of us humans, suddenly stuff was just invented all over the show, and it got smaller as well. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Digital ID and AI put those two things together, and you suddenly, wittingly or unwittingly, you open the door to a plethora, I mean, almost monolithic, unimaginable array of possibilities for how life functions. And one of them in the pie chart would be crime and justice. Let's go to Sean in Northampton on the tagging issue. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Yeah, actually, I'm going to say roughly what your last two people said.
Okay.
Over the last 20-odd years, 25 years, I've worked very, very closely with the youth justice system.
Yep.
And I've seen many, many of these kids go to court for 40 times and still not go to jail. Mm-hmm. But you eventually get a tag. And then within about 2 or 3 weeks of the tags becoming quite common, there's a pretty good, shall we say, black market industry in kids that have learned to get the tax off. So that's one thing.
How does that... I mean, forgive the naivety on my part here, Sean, but I always thought a tag was kind of, you can't get through one of those things, and if you try, the tag will go off.
That's supposed to be... They're supposed to be foolproof, but I've personally witnessed one young man take one off for his mate, and I literally seen him do it. So I know that, and I also know that if you put silver foil or lead sheet around the bleeper, you can hide that as well.
You'd have thought the people that invented the tag might have run that through some foil tests.
Well, what's gone wrong is they've given, yet again, they've said kind of subcontract that out to companies like Interserve or G4S. And now, no disrespect to anyone that works for them, but they're not highly paid professional security people. They're quite low-paid people on a kind of admin job.
But I can understand, you know, the point of them, you know, being people taking them off or finding a way to stop them bleeping or whatever the heck it is. I could imagine that 10 years ago, you know, I could see why. But today, you might think, no, they got this thing sorted out.
Well, I mean, the best example of what would be the only thing is to chip people. But, I mean, obviously, you can imagine the left-wing Tory Labour backbenchers if you said we're going to put a chip inside you. So the one thing I really can't understand what we can't do in this country, I'm not saying about bringing back national service, and I'm not thinking about putting people in the Army, Navy or Air Force. But what they could do, they could fit up things like training regiments type thing. They don't go to war. They can't go to war. It's not conscription, but rather than put them there and have to feed them and everything else, every day they can report to centres where they are continually used and monitored. Because a friend of mine who works for the probation service, which incidentally I hope to start working for in 2 or 3 weeks, he tells me, right, sometimes he's allocated a Saturday or Sunday job to take a minibus for the tag wearers out to pick up litter or dig cards or whatever. And he takes them there on his own. It might be him plus about 12 or 13 blokes, and they just refuse. And they refuse knowing that no one is going to do anything about it.
Right. Great.
The problem we've got in this country right now, we've got a government that talks all these deals, all these processes, but they never tell the truth. And what the point I'm really trying to make is you've got to look into the reality of this. It sounds brilliant. I really agree with it. Get them out of prison, home arrest, tag them. But they've got to introduce tags at work or chipping people, and you've got to bring back a professional body like the old prison service who have trained and everything else. Then they shut that down because of the pensions and things like that. You can't give lowly paid workers who get 1 week's training that kind of responsibility. It's either a police and criminal matter or it's not. And that's where it's all going wrong. That's like when they come out of a young offenders institute, they come out, they've had 3 months in there, they get a curry on a Friday. This is a fact. I'm not waffling now. They can have a curry on a Friday. They might get a steak on a Saturday, a football game on a Sunday. It's not justice no more. It's just 3 months off the street with people that really don't care what they do in there, because they're not prison officers. They're simply people on a low-paid job.
Yep, spot on. It's all a flipping mess, Sean, isn't it? Listen, great stuff. Thank you very much indeed for that. That's Sean in Northampton. And Wayne gets back in touch. Wayne was the guy that works in had worked, I think I'm right in saying, in police response unit. Says, you mentioned that probation officers might deal with these vicinity alarms. That's an even worse idea than the police dealing with it. Probation officers work Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. So what happens if one goes off at 10 o'clock? And I guess by definition, it's likely that these sort of things will happen in the unsociable hours. What happens then, or at the weekend, for that matter, says Wayne? More than that, if a probation officer deals with this, how is he or she going to deal with a violent offender? Absolutely ridiculous. No, the probation officer will then ring the police. Which puts us back to Wayne's first point. The police will go, OK, we'll put that on the list. Oh, look, there's a massive bank robbery or something going on. We'll have more comments on this. Is technology the future of justice? 0344 499 1000. That's where you'll find us. It's 10 to 2. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. This from Sharon, who says, what if the information that the abuse victim is receiving, like the location, etc., is used for other things? Like what if, say, a member of the victim's family uses the location for revenge? Yeah, I guess, that's a good point, actually, isn't it? There is that possibility. I don't know how much info the victim would get other than a vicinity bleep saying my former attacker is within 5 miles of me. I don't know whether it locates it specifically for the victim or whether only the police will get that. It's a bit complicated as to know because that level of information hasn't really been released. Rachel is in Nottinghamshire. Rachel, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. Yeah, I worked in the prison service for many, many years.
Okay.
And tagging, we had a prisoner who was let out on tag, so off he went home, and then the tagging people attended his address, put his tag on, but he had a prosthetic leg. So as soon as they'd gone, he took off his prosthetic leg.
Took his leg off,
his spare leg.
Did nobody
and spent the rest of the time out and about.
No.
Did
nobody spot that?
No, nobody spotted it. He came back in because he was always in and out.
So they put a tag on a false leg?
Yeah, they had big thick socks on, he said, and they put the tag on. Because they're supposed to reveal the leg, but they didn't, else they would have...
Yeah, well, I would imagine if you're the person that puts the tag on, I don't know how qualified that job is, but, our previous caller, Sean, was making the point that, there's a lot of people who aren't on great wages who, it might sound like a great job. I'm a professional tag attacher. But actually, it might be a minimum wage job where you just go around and click it on and leave.
Yeah, you don't need any qualifications or anything. They just, they just show you how to do it or not do it, as the case may be.
I'd like to think the person that puts the tag on is like a scientist, like Bill Gates or something, showing up at your house, with all sorts of computer-based qualifications.
No, nothing.
Yeah, nothing at all. Interesting. Another one of the many perils to come. Rachel, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's go to Michigan in the United States. This is Cindy. Afternoon, Cindy.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Well, you know what? I think that this is a total invasion of privacy for the victim.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. And you know what? I wish that we could put more of the responsibility on the criminal.
Sure.
Make it more of a punishment. Like, okay, let's put a tag on the criminal. And also, how about a curfew?
Well, I think the curfew, to me, the tag and the curfew should go hand in hand, shouldn't it, really?
Oh, yeah.
But there seems to be still a distrust of the system. In the States, the use of house arrest happens more than... I don't know if it happens here at all, to be honest, but many suggesting that might be another aspect of this.
Oh, yeah. House arrest, too, as well. Yeah, because I just think that, to tag the victim, that might make them uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, the victim thing is, I understand what someone's driving at here, but, you can kind of see why the victim might also, even though it's like a device on the phone, it might feel like the victim's being tagged in this too.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah. And there's one of the issues. Cindy, thank you very much indeed for that. This one from Ian in Bloxwich, who says, I worked with a builder once who had a tag on his leg through the summer, and I had an 8 p.m. curfew. But he lived next door to a pub. And if he sat in the beer garden right next to the fence, which bordered his garden, his tag never went off. Genius. See, that's the thing to do, isn't it? In the modern world, just live near a pub, because you're still in the radius of it going off. You would think that there is, by now, I can't believe they haven't invented... I don't know how often somebody tries to take their own tag off without it... Because I would assume the idea is if you try to take your tag off and fiddle with it and break it, an alarm goes off and alerts the tag people, and the tag people get in their big tag wagon and come round to your house and sort you out. But by all accounts, everything we're hearing is like these things aren't really that great. And that's quite bothering, isn't it? Considering that many are now arguing that this could be the answer to some of our problems. 0344 499 1000. We'll have more from you in a couple of moments' time. You can leave a voice note there as well. If you're messaging, it's 87222. Lots more to come. We will also get back into that issue of Shabana Mahmood's plans for immigration status could be scuppered by some daft left-wing backbenchers. Details on that to come. Right now, the time is 2 o'clock. Let's get the news headlines.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up on 3 minutes after 2 o'clock. Welcome back. It is the home of Common Sense. So we're talking about this Ministry of Justice initiative piloting the UK's first proximity tagging programme. It's due to start later this year. The initiative will protect rape and domestic abuse victims by continuously monitoring offenders and alerting probation officers 24/7. Now, this sounds great for protecting victims, but it does beg the question, what else could come from this? Is this the introduction of a nationwide surveillance system? Is technology the future of justice? Having said that, and is it really down to the victims to have to be part of this equation? Details to come, and lines are open. More of your calls on the way. Also this afternoon, Keir Starmer may concede to Angela Rayner's criticism on migrant residency reforms, but Downing Street refuses to confirm whether it will proceed with the Home Secretary's plans to extend the residency period required for 1.6 million current UK migrants to gain permanent settlement. Stand by. This looks like U-turn number, I don't know if it's 15 or 16. I think I've got that about right. One of those two. It's on the way. It's coming down the tracks. Keir Starmer's gone, no, the left-wing backbenchers, they're absolutely fuming. We can't do it. Change the policy, please. Details on that in just a couple of moments. And the left are absolutely gunning to rejoin the EU. They love a bit of Brussels over there at Left Wing HQ. The Green leader, Zach Polanski, is up for it. Chancellor Rachel Reeves, she's given it the nod. And Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also weighed in to the argument. We'll have details on that story too. 0344 499 1000. Just before we continue, some more comment from you. Don says, many years ago, I worked for a council housing department. We had to provide accommodation for a released paedophile. He was tagged, he compromised the tag and disappeared. Now that is disturbing for a whole number of reasons, not least that a paedophile is therefore on the loose. But the fact you could compromise the tag, I could understand. Maybe it was more than 10 years ago, Don, I don't know. But from everything we're hearing this afternoon, people are still compromising tags. They still haven't quite got that bit correct. One here says, no name given, it shouldn't be the victim's job to assist the containment of their attacker. Most victims are busy trying to rebuild their lives. They don't want a constant reminder. That's a brilliant point. And I think that's arguably why this policy may just eventually go by the wayside. I think if one of these alarm things goes off accidentally, if an attacker or a potential or a previous attacker, I don't know, crosses 1 foot into the perimeter zone, which might be 10 miles or something, does it then go off and freak the life out of somebody who's already been through hell? Great point. Thank you for that. Let's move on. Loads more comment on that to come, and we will return to the question, is technology the future of justice? Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, Keir Starmer might have to concede on that permanent settlement reform for 1.6 million UK migrants. This comes after Angela Rayner and others, there's a whole list of them in that group, have said they're not happy. Downing Street wouldn't confirm if Shabana Mahmood's ideas, the contentious plans to extend the qualifying time to gain permanent settlement, would actually go ahead. Let's have a listen to the MP for Ineptitude West, Stella Creasy.
The thing I would say that's fundamentally un-British about what the Home Secretary is doing is that she's doing it by the back door in small committees in Parliament through legislation that we will never debate. Democracy has always been the cornerstone of both, socialism and the British Parliament. Without it, we can't actually scrutinise whether these are a good idea. So, of course, Angela has to give a speech. Those of us like me who've tried to raise concerns are left with no other option but to try to get that debate in Parliament so that we can actually look at this.
Tom Jones is with us, Deputy Online Editor at The Critic. Afternoon to you, Tom.
Afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Now, normally my rule of thumb would be, look, if it's upset Stella Creasy and the like, it's probably a good policy. I don't think that's a bad kind of litmus test of things. This has got all sorts, of people getting very, very upset and disturbed. They don't like the retrospective nature of this policy. They believe it's a sort of a sledgehammer and a nut situation. It's targeting the wrong people is another one of the arguments. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I think this really shows Labour's bind when it comes to migration. This is a problem that they would really rather not have. They do have to get immigration down. As if the Conservative Party proved anything, it is that any party that runs, migration above, let's say, 100,000 cannot stay long in government, and certainly at least has to signal that it is willing to bring down immigration. The real problem here is that immigration is actually coming down from the ludicrous highs that we saw under the Conservatives. But it's the cost of the people who came in Conservatives that's really the issue here. And Mahmood's proposals were really to deal with one specific wave of immigration, the Boris wave that arrived with a massive the basically lowering of requirements that came in under Boris Johnson. And so Mahmood's proposals are to deal with that, but not really to affect the rate of people coming in. And I think that puts Labour in a real bind because it is a massive financial cost. The government are going to have to do something about it. Otherwise, it is going to be financially crippling. And frankly, the Labour backbenchers really don't want to.
Isn't the reality, Tom, of all of these kind of policies and initiatives around this sort of sensitive, super sensitive area for left-wing Labour MPs. The reality is whatever somebody comes up with, they will be unhappy with, right? I mean, because their ideal sort of default position would be, we don't need a policy of any kind because there's nothing we need to be dealing with because we welcome with open arms anybody that arrives.
Yeah, I also think it's very instructive that in this process, Angela Rayner has basically argued that retroactively changing terms kind of constitutes a breach of trust, and that our sustainable economic migration must uphold what she calls British values of fairness. Now, it's all very well and fair to say that for the people who are already here, but frankly, the people who are already here should not be here. It was by an aberration of very poor government policy that British people did not want, and at the earliest opportunity they could, punished the government that brought those rules in. And I think what we need to be talking about here is sustainable economic migration from the view of the host population, that is the taxpayers of Britain. And what about upholding our values of fairness? Because most of the people who came in on this immigration wave, as you and I both know, are not contributors to the economy or the exchequer.
Yeah, indeed. And even those, I keep hearing, I heard Creasy, and there was another Labour MP I heard this morning who was absolutely losing her mind over this. It was the worst news or the worst thing she could possibly imagine in the entirety of her life, as she described the horrendous injustices. It wasn't so much just cringe, it was just embarrassing to hear somebody lose the plot in this way. And she kept using this phrase, these people are taxpayers, they contribute. And I thought, well, hang on, being a taxpayer doesn't mean you're a net contributor. I mean, if you're in a very low paid job and you live here with your family, and even if you are paying a level of tax, the chances are you're also entitled to some other allowance in order to fill the gaps for the money you're unable to earn and look after your family. So, I mean, that in itself, this catch-all phrase, they pay tax, is not an answer.
No, it's not. And I think we have to be honest about the scale and the impact of hundreds of thousands, millions, in fact, of low-skilled migrants getting settlement. The Home Office has calculated that the just under 200,000, I think, foreign care workers and their dependents who came over under the Boris wave. By the way, we now have more vacancies in the care home sector than we did when that scheme was started. But those less than 200,000 foreign care workers and their adult dependents will cost the state nearly £10 billion in benefits over the course of their lives.
Yeah.
Which is an absolutely enormous sum. And I think one of the very frustrating things about this conversation is that we are seeing this be used as basically a way to challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party, instead of actually dealing with what may be one of the most consequential economic decisions that this country makes in many of our lifetimes.
Indeed. Lots of examples, of course, of the ridiculousness of this system. As you rightly say, I mean, overarchingly, the idea that we're finding ways to accommodate people who probably shouldn't have been here in the first place is a bit bizarre in itself. And, of course, there's been a long line of examples of the kind of odd reasonings people have given in order to stay, often citing, right to a family life and this kind of stuff. And it was only last year, you'll remember this, Tom, possibly one of the most famous cases was the chicken nugget gate story of the guy that argued, I should be able to stay here because I can't go back to my country of origin because my kid likes chicken nuggets and they don't have chicken nuggets in... Was it I'm tempted to say it was Albania.
No,
anyway,
I think it was Nigeria. Actually.
Oh, was it Nigeria? Was it? Okay. So he argued there was a chicken nugget problem. Anyway, this fella, Clevis Disha is his name, has now won the right to stay in this country. He entered Britain illegally in 2001 under a false name and lied in a failed asylum claim. He had a 2-year jail sentence in 2017 after being caught with £250,000 in cash, determined to have been the proceeds of crime. So he therefore should have been deported at that point. But the judge a fella called Judge Veloso, has now ruled in his favour at the appeal, saying his deportation would be unduly harsh on his son. Now, if ever you want, we can laugh about that all day long and talk about chicken nuggets. Oh, what a weird world we live in. Great for satire, great for a little bit of humour. I mean, the serious underpinnings of this story is there for all to see. This is outrageous, right, in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it is. And I think there's a distinction to be drawn here between the kind of people that Angela Rayner and Shabana Mahmood are kind of arguing about, who are people who, you know, have been invited, have been allowed into this country by the government, by the terms of the immigration, basically, rules, but that we disagree basically should have actually been allowed in and would therefore like to retrospectively change. And cases like this, where clearly no right-thinking nation would ever allow this person in the first place or here to stay. But it's, you know, this, as well as the problems with legal immigration, we have a huge problem with the asylum system. When before we signed the agreement with Albania, we had, I think it was an asylum acceptance rate, something like 85% from Albania. And the next highest European nation was France, which was less than 20. You know, there is nothing wrong with Albania. It is just not a particularly well-run nation, but frankly, neither are we.
True.
So, you know, we really do need a complete overhaul of this system because, frankly, the British people are not feeling like they are being treated fairly either in legal or illegal immigration, and they have no sense of control. At any point, they have no sense of control over the people who are coming in or of the people who are already here. And frankly, I think that is the resentment of that is driving forward parties like Reform.
Yeah. Absolutely bang on. Tom, great to have you on again. Thank you. He is Tom Jones, Deputy Online Editor over there at The Critic. The guy can say, I'm told it was Albania. So he came to this country in 2001. He was 15. He came as an unaccompanied child. He entered the country, used fake name, false ID, all the rest of it, claimed to have been born in the former Yugoslavia. So it was a tissue of lies. His asylum claim was rejected. He secured UK citizenship, however, in 2007, after being granted exceptional leave to remain and then indefinite leave to remain. But, of course, in that time, he obviously got somebody pregnant as well, so he's got his own kid now. And it was suggested that, well, because of his son, deporting him would be unduly harsh on his son. I have no idea how old his son is in this story, by the way. I don't know if that information has been given out. Possibly not, that even ages can sometimes be seen as sensitive to reveal. But if ever something just crystallised the ludicrousness, surely even Stella Creasy. If Stella was, I go, Stella, come on, Stella. Listen, really? Are you running with this, Stella, the chicken nugget boy? You reckon that's good? You think that's a good use? You think this man's reasonable? We need him here? I don't know what this fella, Clevis Disher, is doing now, but he has... Oh, the kid's 11, apparently. But he has the right to stay here. I would bet my butt on the fact that this bloke does not do... He's not a scientist or an engineer or a doctor, all right? Now, I know that's not the only criteria for contribution to this country. My guess is that he probably doesn't work at all. Let's go to Matt in Cheshire on the issue of immigration. Matt, good afternoon. What have you got for us? Hi.
Very good afternoon, Ian. It's a beautiful day here.
Yeah, same here. It's an absolute little belter.
Yeah, hope it continues.
No, well, of course it won't continue, Matt. It's the United Kingdom. I met my mate Tony, he's a neighbour, on the dog walk this morning, the only man more miserable than me when it comes to the weather. And he was on the other side of the road, and he said, you know, well, because I had my sunglasses on because it was quite shiny out there. And he said, ain't going to last, mate. Give it 2 days. It'll be absolutely piddling down. And I thought, he is the purveyor of doom, this fella. But I thought he's probably right, because that's going to happen. We'll have a month of rain now.
Yeah, I like Tony already. He's
lovely. He's a straight-talking South African who tells it like it is. He could just never say it out loud on the radio because we'd be closed down.
I've wrote down my thoughts, Ian.
Yeah, good.
I'll start with, I would hate to potentially patronise the great British public, but when is everyone going to wake up and realise this government is not going to do anything that the indigenous majority want ever? They knew after 6 months they would lose the next election, and they will now double down in flooding Britain with as many immigrants as possible, purely out of spite and to damage future government's efforts. The whole purpose of this government is to change demographics, create COVID-style environments, and to restrict your civil liberties and take away your ability to criticise immigrants and Muslims, while they simultaneously tax everybody to death to give freebies benefits and to grovel to said immigrants and Muslims. What we have is mass blatant daylight traitorism allowed and endorsed by the civil service. And I'm going to call him Prince Charles because I don't see him as my king anymore. They are beyond lowlives, and we are incapable of even conceiving that these kinds of things are possible. But these are the things that are happening.
You're absolutely bang on. Where does it stop? Does it stop with a different kind of government? Because, there's a lot of divide on the right, and we know this from Restore versus Reform versus Advance, who have very different ideas about how we deal with not just immigration coming in from now, but immigration from the past.
That's the one thing that confuses me, and that they can't all sit around a table together and bash out one big concise policy they all get behind. They don't all have to like each other, but if one's saying one thing and there's 2 million votes here and 4 million votes there and 2 million votes somewhere else, and they're all bickering with each other, I'm not going to say Labour could get back in because that's never going to happen, but the Greens could get a ridiculous sort of large amount of votes just by default.
Yeah, they could, and they will, unless the Labour government do something like say, "Hey, we're going to rejoin the EU," and then people on the left might go, "Oh, maybe we can vote for Keir after all." We will wait and see. Matt, always a good call. Thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. 20 past 2 now. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. 24 minutes after 2 o'clock. Max says the main reason why MPs want to rejoin the EU and follow their rules and laws is so they don't have to accept responsibility when things go wrong. It's interesting, if this was the mid-70s or something, when the original common market vote went in, we'd be having a very different conversation. But I can never seem, and I can understand why, I can never seem to just even lightly insinuate to a die-hard Remainer of the multifarious other problematic issues that revolved around the question. And don't get me wrong, the question was a hopeless question to put out, are you leave or remain? It just didn't really give enough information on either side. And of course there was lies and hyperbole all over the place on this. None of that is in dispute. But what never really got raised, and I think should have done, just in the interests of basic intellectual reasoned discussion, would have been the overreach of the EU. Considering this is meant to be a trading bloc, it functioned unlike any other trade. There's loads of different trading blocs around the world, sort of Australasian models. There's the obviously the America, forget the name now, Canada, North America, South America, all of those areas that trade. This was something completely different. This went into a totally different place. And it's not a conspiracy to say that those that were at the helm of it, and I'm thinking of the sort of French-German alliance in the early days, whose aim was to make it a kind of united state. That was the aim for it. That was the purpose for it, so that you would eventually end up with a kind of harmonised legal system, a police force, a military, etc. So you sort of replicate the American model in that respect. Now, that is a very different question and set of discussions than our trading capabilities with or without the EU. But when you're asked the question, leave or remain, you can't really get to focus and major on that point, which is, to me, is massive, because that absolutely is about democracy. I understand it that if you're selling a bit of wood to the Spanish, and the Spanish are selling it to the French, or the Germans are flogging it to the Portuguese, I can understand why you might need a harmonisation of regulations. It kind of makes perfect sense in the modern world. I get that bit, but I don't get all the other stuff. I don't get 2 parliaments, banknotes, several presidents, a national anthem, a currency. I mean, really, how much more evidence did people need to realise this is about so much more than just trading? Simple as that. This in from Anne in Archways. One of the most British traits is to queue as civilised. All illegal immigration is un-British as they jump the queue. It's a very good point, Anne. Yes. Do you pass the Britishness test? Can you speak the language? A little bit. Can you do that? Do you know the history? Oh, a bit of Shakespeare. Fantastic. Do you know how to queue? Ah, gotcha. You don't, do you? Came over on a boat, mate. Not British. Rubber stamp, away you go. Mark's in Lincolnshire on immigration. Mark, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi there, Ian, mate.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, it's just millions must go at the end of the day. It's the number one issue. I mean, as I was saying to the researcher there that I spoke to, my problem with, I'm a member of Restore Britain. I've never hidden that. And for me, it's all about messaging, Ian.
Yeah.
Because with reform, I'm not seeing the messaging. They don't seem serious about the actual issue. They have a deportation document. It's 3 pages. There's no detail in there, really.
Yeah, go on.
It's mostly about the ECHR. You've got all sorts of other things, our own legislation, that need to be repealed, such as Section 55, which would sort out Chicken Nugget Man. Because that's to do with the concerns of, somebody who's got children. So, you've got all these things, and Reform just aren't doing anything about these things. And the messaging's all over the place. 1 minute they want mass deportations, the next minute they're talking about assimilating them. You know,
What's the answer? Do you want to see those kinds of parties kind of clubbed together, as Matt was saying, and many others have made that point?
I mean, it'd be nice to see that, but I just don't see that ever happening.
No, I really can't see it happening for lots of reasons. I can almost guarantee it won't happen.
When you've tried to fit somebody up on an attempt to kill charge, that's...
Well, I can see the Conservatives and Reform at some level having an agreement.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Restore and Reform, that's never going to happen.
The thing is, if you guys say this with respect to Ben and to Rupert, I know both of these guys, if you went out onto the streets, if you knocked on my sister's door and said, what do you think of these guys? They say, I do not know who these people are.
Well, that's conjecture, Ian. There are plenty of citizen journalist interviews doing that test. Everybody knows who Rupert Lowe is. At the end of the day,
I'm not. A citizen journalist is really just a term for not a journalist. We can all agree on that. But I get your point. I hear your point. I mean, of course, people like you and me who discuss stuff, and people listening to this, we know who all these people are. But I wonder how that penetrates outside of our echo chamber, Mark.
Well, what I would say, Ian, as far as Restore Britain and their reach is concerned, when Nigel came back to Reform, it took them 4 months to overtake the Conservatives. Restore Britain have done that in 4 weeks.
Restore Britain have overtaken the Conservatives?
Yeah.
Which poll would that be?
That's not a poll. That's in terms of membership.
Right, OK. I don't know how they're counting their membership. I don't know how they're doing it. I'm not disputing it, by the way.
Nobody really knows.
And nobody knows how. Well, indeed. I mean, because there's the whole thing of you can look at the tracker online. You can look at how many people have actually paid 20 quid, 50 quid, 40, whatever it happens to be, to join a party. I mean, I've no doubt, however, that it's scuppering the Conservatives is not the hardest thing at the moment to do. So I could understand it. I thought you were referring to polling in that respect, but. No. I hear what you're saying.
They've commissioned. Restore have commissioned a poll that shows them at 7%. There was another independent poll that wasn't commissioned by Restore, which shows them again at 7%.
Yeah.
If you look at most of the other polling, the normal polling anyway, that's always getting done, you might notice a trend that the other section's creeping up quite a lot. Because that's gone from around where it normally is, which is about 1%. That tends to be anywhere between 4%, 6%, 7% now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I tell you what, there is no doubt about it. The area of that stat, even if it is low, it is a disruptor for the likes of Reform, right? I mean, it's a huge disruptor. I don't know what Advance UK's position is in a similar respect, Mark, but you're absolutely bang on. I mean, Restore could severely cause a problem in certain areas. It could cause a huge problem for Nigel Farage. Mark, I've got to run. You've been brilliant, as ever. Thank you for that. 0344 499 1000. Jimbo says, how dare you slag off citizen journalists? Oh, let me qualify that, OK? Anyone can call themselves a journalist, all right? It's a bit like calling yourselves a painter and decorator. You don't have to show a bit of paper. What is citizen journalism? Well, in its best form, it's kind of Erin Brockovich, if you like. It's somebody taking the bull by the horns, following a story, uncovering a story, doing their due diligence, triple sourcing the story, going down every available rabbit hole to expose the story, interviewing at length all the different people within it's that, okay? It's that. So that's brilliant. If you want to call that citizen journalist or just journalist, whatever. People who take up their own investigations because they spot an injustice, they realise that it's somehow fallen off the radar. Local council, the old bill, haven't got time, haven't got the inclination, may not even have the proof to follow something. If you do that, that's brilliant. Taking your iPhone into a hotel and filming a pool table and some fried chicken going, look at how they live, is not journalism, OK? I find it quite interesting, by the way. Love watching those videos. Thank you, you disrupting lot. It's brill. And who doesn't love an online audit? I mean, great. It's not really journalism. I'm just making that point. You've got to take it to the next step and the next one and the next one. So no, in answer to Jim Bob's point, I'm not slaughtering anyone who calls themselves a citizen journalist as long as they are one. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This in from Matt. We were talking about whether technology is the future of justice. Reference this initiative from the Justice Department about tagging, close proximity tags, to address offenders who've come out of jail, so that if they are anywhere near a certain vicinity to the person that they abused or attacked, then all sorts of alarms and whistles will go off and everybody will descend and arrest them and all the rest of it. Dawn says, without going into my background, I want to say, if a woman has been raped or attacked, can you imagine the level of fear she would have to endure every day knowing her attacker is out there and the only defence she has is a warning bleep on her phone to know he's within her vicinity? She would live in fear for the rest of her life, in absolute terror. That is true, but I guess you would already be, well, I think you're supposed to be informed, aren't you, if your attacker has been released from jail. And there's a general rule, I'm not quite sure of how authentic the rule is, but a general rule, I thought, that if your attacker is being released from prison, you're told that that is the case. I know that's not always been the case, but I think that's meant to be the point. If you were told they're leaving the prison, but we've got this technology that's going to reassure you, I don't know, does that reassure you? Does that frighten you even more? What if it goes off accident? There's all of these questions. Doubtless the pilot scheme is meant to address that. Supposedly it starts later this year. Now, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, or the beginning of the hour. The left are turning their backs on democracy as the leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, has said the Greens would rejoin the EU if they got into power. Well, the latter isn't going to happen, but it does show a certain direction of travel, because Rachel Reeves has given this idea a nod in some sort of respects. She wished Brexit had never happened, she said, and the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, he said this.
We should rejoin the single market. The single market and customs union, we should try and do this Parliament. And then we should, as a Labour Party, fight the next general election with a clear manifesto commitment. A vote for Labour means we would rejoin the European Union.
We would rejoin the European Union. Let's go to work with David Bannerman, former Conservative MEP. David, always good to speak. Nice to see you again, sir.
Hi, Ian. Hi.
Look, if I was a left-wing MP or a left-wing politician, do you know, I'd probably do this as well, because this is almost like all they've got, I guess. It appeals to the left-wing massive, whether they're on the back benches, whether they're in the streets, the pubs, wherever. I can see why Zach Polanski would say this, because it kind of makes sense. It's within his kind of ideology. But do you sense, David, that Keir Starmer will have no choice but to say this at some point in the next couple of years?
Well, I think the pressure's on him, and of course he's in a very weak position, and it's the hard left which from are pushing him in that direction towards rejoining the EU. It's a complete betrayal of their manifesto pledge, which was not to go in the customs union, not to go in the single market, not to bring back free movement, open borders. I mean, there's Mayor Khan, basically tearing up the Labour manifesto, and he should be disciplined, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? I mean, quite literally, Keir Starmer, whether you believe he thinks this in his head or his heart, we know he doesn't, but it is in their manifesto. There'll be no rejoining of any sort of common market, single currency and the like. I mean, it's explicitly there.
They're throwing the Red Wallers, their own Labour MPs, under the bus. They're led by Joe White. There's about nearly 50 of them. And there are others, who are Red Wall as well. And, they're just abandoning them. And it seems to me this is all a kind of London-centric, Islington, Holborn, where Starmer's seat is. It's all about the internal left-wing agenda. Same with the Greens, that it's all about their agenda, which is city-based. And it is tiresome. It is not respecting the will of the British people. It was the biggest ever vote for anything in British history, 17.4 million. I'd love to point out that that's 17 times what Sadiq Khan got in 2024 in terms of votes, 17 times as much.
Rachel Reeves was speaking in Spain yesterday, and she said that she wished we'd never left the EU. I've noticed a lot of these politicians tend to feel quite safe at saying this in other European countries, that they're almost like, wow, I've got a real audience for this kind of stuff. She cited disputed research which claims Brexit cut the UK GDP by 8%, which has, of course, according to her, affected growth, living standards and prices. Now, this is always a little bit kind of sixth form economics when I hear this, because every time I've tried to prop that stat up, I can't find it anywhere.
It's complete nonsense, Ian. I mean, we've looked at this, and Andrew Neil has commented on this, and in order to be true, we'd have to have outgrown the United States year after year since Brexit. We'd be double Germany every year. I mean, we're a bit bigger than Germany. We have grown a bit better than Germany, but it's not to that scale. And they just make it up. The 4%, they've doubled it now. The 4% was what the OBR was referring to, but they've dropped that as well.
Yeah, it's almost like somebody's gone, should we just call it 8%? And in a couple of years' time, it's going to be 12%.
We're not going to 16,
When all this was happening in 2016, man, it's only 10 years ago now. What were your kind of philosophical reasons for thinking this conglomerate of very nice countries previously, once upon a time, functioned economically, with a certain amount of harmony and all the rest of it? What for you was the tipping point, David, that meant, we would be better off out of the EU than in it?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Look, I want a good relationship with the European Union. I want to trade. I want to be friendly to it. But I don't want to end up in a super state. And that's what the choice was. Ever closer union means you end up in a super state. No England football team. You have a European football team. We have an EU army, which they denied at the time was going to happen. And you have EU forces off Cyprus, it seems. They want a bit of Cyprus. That was a choice, super state or not. I know, as you rightly said earlier, leave Remain. It wasn't such a clear choice, but to me, it was a super state or not. We will be an independent sovereign country is what we chose.
I thought that would have been the more... we kept having, George Osborne talking about the fact that if we vote for to leave, a loaf of bread's going to cost you £155 by next Tuesday.
No, 5,000 maybe.
There was going to have to be an emergency... 3 million unemployed instantly, and then there's going to be... we'll have to have an emergency budget the next day. I think there was another one that he willed out. But I always felt, because I came at this from a kind of the democracy side of things, as I think you have outlined there as well, that all that other stuff, this United States, you know, wasn't an urban myth, it wasn't a conspiracy theory, it was actually happening. It was a massive overreach from any kind of original Franco-German alliance back in the day when they first cooked this thing up, which I think was more of an industrial kind of collaboration back in the day, when Destan and people like that were talking about it. But, you know, since then, if you say to an honest German politician, I remember Chancellor Kohl once being asked, you know, is this really about a United States of Europe? And he went, yeah, of course it is. He was absolutely honest about it. There was no, wasn't a, yeah, our politicians would go, no, it's nothing to do with that. But of course it was to do with that.
I'm afraid it's actually British politicians who've lied to us internally because they know it's not popular, and so proved with the Brexit vote. But as you rightly say, people like Guy Verhofstadt is an out-and-out federalist who've made no secret of the destination being the superstate. And we're very nearly there. As you rightly say, you know, we've got Euro, we've got an EU army, we've got sort of common immigration policies, and you know, you don't, to create a state, you don't need much more than that. And we don't want to be in that super state. It's not like the United States, which I love. It's not democratic. I mean, Von der Leyen got 400 votes, for heaven's sake. That's a democratic mandate. And they're all MEPs that voted for her, and about 200 voted against her.
Yeah.
So it's not a democratic institution. It's very dangerous, in my view. I'd love to see a loose Europe and nation state, which is what de Gaulle wanted.
Well, indeed, and that one, yes, you're right. I mean, it's got, you know, it's not just, it's got two parliaments, it's got a flag, it's got an anthem, it's got all of these things that we, you know, kind of like a 6-year-old could work out. That's the definition of a country, as it were, but always denied over here. If the left did take this and Keir Starmer, I mean, he could say, back to the manifesto point, David, you made, he could say, well, that was last manifesto, next election is a new manifesto, and I'm now going to run on, having looked at, you know, all the figures, I believe now we should go back to the EU. Would he, do you sense, trying to look at this objectively, would he ward off those pesky Green voters that are leaving Labour to join ZAC? Would he scupper the Lib Dems and get them in a pincer movement? Could this actually be something that will save his left-wing skin?
Well, you know, I can see the logic of it. It's basically the left, the Lib Dems, you rightly say, are very out and out, rejoin the EU. They've not changed. The Greens now have added to that. They've become more dramatic. And we're seeing the true Labour rising. They've never liked Brexit. They've never respected it. Though let's not forget places like Sunderland, Newcastle that were very prominent in the Brexit referendum. They're out and out Labour, and the Red Wall is very critical. So, you know, I think this is very much an internal debate within Labour, which is very London centric, and it is, you know, it's such a betrayal, and so is this EU reset. They want to get us closer and dynamic alignment. It means selling out. That's what it means. It means
I love the phrases they come out with, dynamic alignment. I mean, if you put that in a dissertation, you'd be kicked out of university, wouldn't you? For just wheeling out vacuous guff.
We need another budget, by the way, to rejoin the EU. We need another 25 billion. So Rachel Reeves would have to put up taxes by the same amount plus, just to pay for EU fees now. It's gone up, of course, since we were in the EU. It's about 25 billion a year it would be.
Is that all?
And that is never mentioned.
It's never. No, indeed, that you're absolutely right. When they talk about or agitate Sadiq Khan saying, you know, that should be our thing. Well, OK, I hope you've got deep pockets, Sadiq, because this is going to cost a lot of money if it went that way. But they're mere inconvenient facts, I think. David, great to have you on. Thank you. Love chatting with David Bannerman, former Conservative MEP, on the rejoining of the EU. That, I think, is likely to be... I mean, it's going to be in the Green Party manifesto. So, again, this is going to be Starmer literally stuck, going, what the hell do I do? Because that Brexit thing is so central to left-wing thinking in this country. There is a different type of left-wing thinking, of course. There's the kind of Tony Benn, Dennis Skinner left-wing thinking. Even the Jeremy Corbyn left-wing thinking, who would be in the aforementioned category, I think. No, Corbyn's never said how he voted on the EU, but following his politics and looking at where within the Labour Party it sits, he would probably have been a leaver. Obviously not for the same reasons as Nigel Farage would be a leaver, but he would be, so he'd be in that... So there is that part of left-wing thinking that goes the other way, and they've got different reasons for thinking it. But broadly speaking, the average left is going to go, yeah, get back in there, bring on Ursula, show us the flag, show us the, show us Brussels, love all of that, bring on the euro. I can only think that Keir Starmer is right now thinking, God, I'm going to literally have to face that question in about 18 months' time as we really start to move towards a general election. 0344 499 1000. We'll go back to your calls in just a moment. We've got the voice of doom. I think it's day 11 or something of that nature. Day 11. Will it go today? Find out next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Max says, how about tags on neck collars that explode if the criminal ventures more than 100 yards from their home? For some reason, I can just see Joe Pesci with one of those, like kind of Home Alone thing. With the hair thing, when... Thank you, Mac, for that. Love it. David says, I have no problem with tech. It is mostly all good. It's the objective that it will be used for. Mission creep. And I think that's the issue, isn't it, about technology and crime and what technology can do, because something that offers you solutions. You should always go, OK, what does that mean? Because, you could solve all crime by sticking a camera facing everyone's front door. and you'd probably realise that if you did that all over the country, and in every single park and in every single street, right the way, wherever there's a lamppost, there's a camera, you know, if you did that to that extent, you would have an effect on crime. But who wants to live like that? And this one in from Sharon says, what if the information that the abuse victim is receiving, like location, is used for other things? Like what if, say, a member of the victim's family uses the location for revenge? I might have read that out earlier, but it's worth just going over that again. Really good point. Just before we talk to Andrew in Halifax, let's do the voice of doom. This is day 11 of the mystery voice. I have to now make this point quite emphatically. You are looking for a politician, because every day somebody just guesses Eddie Izzard or something, who did try to be a politician, didn't he, at some point? He gave it a go. So it's a politician. They could be left-wing, they could be right-wing, young, old, dead or alive. It's a very simple question. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
So we're on day 11 of this. Let's hear it again.
There's hardly any experience.
And again.
There's hardly any experience.
So here's what you do. 87222 if you think you know. It's not Rory Stewart. It's not Rishi Sunak. There are a couple of the regular guesses, a few others in that list as well. It's not either of the Miliband's, so forget all of that lot. But it is a politician, and it's a male, by the way. And it's not Christopher Biggins, which is another fairly common guess as well. 87222 if you know who this is.
There's hardly any experience.
And, of course, we reveal who after the news at 3, but only if somebody gets it correct. Back on the EU and Brexit, Andrew's in Halifax. What have you got for us, Andrew? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Hiya.
Well, I'm incredibly annoyed. In fact, I'm furious that these pronouncements have been made, but I'm not at all surprised because this has been in the works since the 24th of June, 2016. I mean, I've had various conversations on here and elsewhere with yourself.
Yep.
That the whole idea all along was to leave a part of the United Kingdom tied to EU rules. That would be the anchor. And then, therefore, by aligning Northern Ireland with single market rules, they could then plausibly argue that the only way to have smooth internal trade was for the rest of the United Kingdom to also align. Once you've got that's stage one. Stage two is then to say, well, we are now fully aligned, but we have no say. So let's revisit the referendum result. Any country that was serious about honouring that referendum result would never, ever have allowed its part of its territory to be kept under EU control. This is all on May and the advisors that she surrounded herself with, Ollie Robbins, Gavin Barwell, that one that's now up for the SDLP Northern Ireland, O'Toole. They were all behind this.
But she also had Robbie Gibb, who was very much not cut from that cloth.
No, he wasn't. But three voices raged against one. I think that Boris signed the withdrawal agreement because he had such a poor attention to detail. He didn't really know the implications of what
he essentially signed the same agreement that Theresa May has come up with.
He did.
And yet, for some reason, she was seen as she's hopeless because she's actually because she was a Remainer, of course. Boris wasn't a Remainer, but he wasn't really a Brexiteer, was he? I mean, we all know that.
No.
So he kind of just made it sound as if it was like, what was he, oven ready or something, and all of this business.
Yeah.
And it was really the same thing that Theresa May had done, just with a bit of Boris gloss on the top.
Absolutely, but the difference was that she knew exactly what she was doing, which Boris seldom did when it came to matters Brexit. So I hold that woman and her government almost entirely responsible for this because, as I say, they've used Northern Ireland as the anchor to draw the rest of the country in. They should have delivered an entire Brexit for the whole United Kingdom. That's what we voted. We were the member state. And they've allowed the press to get away with this nonsense that, Northern Ireland voted Remain or Scotland voted Remain. It wasn't like that. You never hear talk like that with any other national referendum. It was one vote, one person, one part of the country.
Do you think, if Theresa May was sitting here now, who, by the way, you've just broken a dream for me because she was in my dream last night.
Oh dear.
I can't. Yeah, don't worry, it was nothing. Anyway, she popped up, and I can't remember the context. I just remember waking up this morning, reading a paper, and there was a picture of Theresa May, and I thought, oh, she was in the dreamline. What was she doing in the dream? I think I said to somebody, look, there's Theresa May. Can't think of the context. Maybe it's because I was imagining this conversation was going to happen today, Andrew. She would say if she was sitting here, though, that isn't what I did. I did it to protect the United Kingdom.
No, she didn't do that to protect the United Kingdom at all. If she wanted to protect the United Kingdom and deliver on the referendum result, she would have not allowed the EU to browbeat her. Well, I say browbeat. I think she went along with it because she knew that's what is a long-term implications. But I mean, if you remember what Ollie Robbins said, he said that alignment with the EU for Northern Ireland was how he wanted to see the rest of Brexit implemented in the rest of the UK. So he was open about it. It's just that everybody was so busy concentrating on the machinations of Parliament that they never noticed.
It was like, look over there, and everyone did, and Ollie weaved his magic. Andrew, it's a brilliant call. Loved it. Thank you. Andrew in Halifax. Are we going to get a winner to the Voice of Doom? Have a listen.
There's hardly any experience.
87222, if you think you know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Continuing to take your calls. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the home of common sense. Ministry of Justice pilot scheme on proximity tagging. The initiative, of course, is intended to protect victims of rape, domestic abuse, etc., by continuously monitoring offenders and then alerting law enforcement if they get anywhere near. It does mean, however, that the victim would have to carry some kind of app on their phone in order for this to work. But the wider question in terms of nationwide surveillance is technology. Very simply, the future of justice. We'll have more on that story from you. Also, Keir Starmer may concede to Angela Rayner's criticism on migrant residency reforms. We know that Downing Street is refusing to fully confirm that they endorse what Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, was planning. This was about the extension of the residency period required for the 1.6 million current UK migrants to gain permanent settlement. So we'll have more on that story as well. And as you've been hearing, there is a big old lineup of EU lovies out there. Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, is gunning to rejoin the EU, but he's not alone. Rachel Reeves says she regretted it, and the Mayor of London has weighed in saying Labour should promise it. Your response to that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Let me just move to this story. This is the Royal Navy withholding warships from the Middle East, with military chiefs fearing that Iran would try to sink them. Meanwhile, a small group of British military officers have been dispatched to the US Central Command to help plan how to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Details on that coming next. We'll speak to Tom Sharp in a moment, former Royal Navy commander. But first, David Patrikarakos, journalist and columnist with the Daily Mail, has been covering a lot on this. David, good afternoon to you. I am struggling. I'm trying to do a sort of stock take of what ships we've got, what we haven't got. One person says one day we've got nothing. An aircraft carrier's gone to the Arctic, the other one doesn't work. But we have got... It's not like we haven't got a navy at all, and we've certainly got some contention over warships going in that direction, that's for sure.
Sure. I mean, look, we do have a navy. What it exists at now would probably make Nelson weep, but it is there. Last year, I went to Darwin in Australia to visit the aircraft carrier, where I met with David Lammy and John Healy. So we're still sending them around. I mean, look, what we've done is a kind of to put it charitably, in a split screen policy. To put it more realistically, it's the worst of Keir Starmer, trying to hedge, do two things at once and failing miserably. So we refuse to actually send what hard power we have to the Strait, but we've sent some experts to help the Americans plan how that might be done. And let's not forget, as I'm sure you know and all of your viewers know, the Strait of Hormuz is the preeminent energy choke point in the world.
Indeed.
So it's very serious.
Does this ward off Donald Trump's criticism that we're doing nothing in, you know, our greatest, the Rolls-Royce of allies, as he said the other day? If we're sending some pretty big military brains over there, surely that's got to butter some parsnips with the Oval Office?
Well, I refer you to my previous answer, Ian. I think it's doing the worst of both worlds. Look, this is like, you know what it's like? It's like when something happens and the Foreign Office comes out and calls for de-escalation. It doesn't please anyone, and it's just embarrassing. It's just better. If you really believe that there's no interest for Britain in this conflict, which is wrong, at least have the courage to say so and sit it out. But this, not even half-assed, this quarter-assed efforts are just embarrassing to everyone. And no, they're going to butter no parsnips, Ian.
Yeah. So in terms of what our response should be, because there is a, you know, if you're Keir Starmer at the moment, I guess, you know, those... And it does divide somewhat left and right, but, you know, trying to be objective about this, a lot of his MPs are happy with his position, that he hasn't gone full pelt. I mean, there's some unhappy, even allowing the Americans to use air bases, etc. But, of course, there's another voice down there in Westminster that's saying we look ridiculous. We look as if we not just don't want to help, but actually can't help.
Well, this is another thing, isn't it? It's the disparity between, I guess, our self-image and what are our actual capabilities. And looking at, if you degrade year after year, decade after decade, your armed forces, this is what you're going to get. Look, this is not a done deal by any means. This is a big gamble from Trump and Netanyahu, okay? So there are questions around this conflict. There are questions around this war. But look, let's talk about what we're dealing with here. This is an Iranian regime who chants death to Britain decade after decade. It's an Iranian regime that has sent its assassins to assassinate people in Britain. It's an Iranian regime that invests millions in penetrating ideologically Britain year after year. They are a clear and present danger, not to the United States, not just to Israel and the Middle East, but to Britain. So we should be doing more. And the fact we're not is just not great for Britain.
Yeah. In terms of what is going on elsewhere, of course, we know, you know, ultimately, energy is central to this, whether it's energy being stopped from getting through the Strait, whether it's facilities getting bombed. We know Donald Trump has issued a big warning in the wake of attacks on that major gas field, which is shared by Iran and Qatar. What are you making of that element of this story and Donald Trump's promise of what he might do next?
Look, I mean, there's two issues here. First of all, tactically narrowly at least, I've watched the military degradation of Iran's terror apparatus, foreign and domestic, and it has been tactically at least hugely successful. The decapitation of Iran's senior leadership is unprecedented in modern history, to my mind. I can't think of another example. The energy stuff is more complex. It should have been foreseeable Iran was going to do this. It's never done it before, but once you took out their supreme leader, it was foreseeable. This is complex. Let's understand something, that even if the Straits of Hormuz were to reopen tomorrow, they wouldn't start functioning immediately. It'll take weeks to get back to normal functioning. There's lots of tankers backed up. And again, you rightly say, Iran is striking its neighbors. Qatar is the biggest provider, or one of the biggest providers of liquefied natural gas in the world. That's where it goes into a lot of our heating. So Iran has very few points of leverage. This is one of their points of leverage. Trump says he has a plan to clear the strait, to get it going, get where he needs to, because otherwise this is a very long, gritty war of attrition, and every day that goes by will benefit Iran more than us.
Yeah, just on that very point, what is your, I mean, it's hard to know, how long's a piece of string and all that, but what is your assessment looking on at this? Journalistically, you've written a lot about it. You're very forensic on this stuff, David. I know it's a difficult question to answer, but we're not in for the short haul in the way that Donald Trump first envisaged it, but what does a long haul look like?
Well, look, okay, I mean, there's several scenarios right now. If this regime stays in power, as it is, crippled, but absolutely furious, we may be looking at an Iranian North Korea, which is not good for anybody. If they want to finish this now, and I thought just before they took Karg Island and, struck the military facilities there, they could have stopped for a while. If they want to finish this now, then this is going to go on, okay? If they really want to reopen the strait and ensure that this regime falls, we're talking not weeks, months, possibly longer, and possibly more boots on the ground. And we know where that ends sometimes.
Indeed. David, great to have you on. We will speak again, I hope. Thank you, David. Patrick Karakos, journalist and columnist with The Mail. Extensive coverage from him in The Mail, which you can read online as well. Let's get a word from Tom Sharp, OBE, former Royal Navy commander. Nice to see you again, Tom. I think it was a couple of weeks ago that we spoke now. Not a lot has happened. I mean, there's a lot of talking happened in that time. There's a lot of bombing continued. But from our perspective and the Royal Naval perspective, where are we on this? How do you see it as a Navy man who knows this terrain and these kind of stories and objectives very well? Are we in a kind of backseat position where it's a wait-and-see moment, or is something else going on that we're not aware of?
I think we are in a slight bit of stalemate here. It feels very Houthi-esque right now, where a steady drumbeat of strikes from Iran, whether successful or unsuccessful, will maintain their status quo, which is control of the strait. And it's important to note that it's control, not closure. I think people often get those two confused.
Yep.
But right now they have control. They're letting perhaps 5 or 6 ships of their choosing out per day. They're rerouting them up to the north so that they can get eyes on, and their intelligence product is improved, so they make sure they're letting the right ships go. So items are moving in and out. Meanwhile, by we I mean the US and Israel, continue to play whack-a-mole with their mobile launchers, their fast attack craft, and potentially their mine layers. And so we are in a little bit of a sort of status quo lockdown at the moment.
Do you sense that the Royal Navy are going to be playing a bigger part in this, or do you believe that Mr. Starmer's position will remain as it is, that we are not getting involved in this in a literal military sense?
Yeah, I agree with the previous commentator in as far as we are making the worst of all worlds out of this. Firstly, we are involved in this. It's at the pumps already. It's at insurance rates. This fight is coming to us. It's not an over there problem. And I think, again, often with naval matters, people think it's for someone else to sort out. This is coming our way. Secondly, we've got at least 6 things I could list immediately that we are already doing to help. We've got a senior leadership in Bahrain controlling the 40+ countries that operate from there. We've got the carrier coming to readiness. We've got the Type 45 destroyer heading across the Mediterranean. We've spun up an amphibious ship who could be used for non-combatant evacuation. We've very significantly bought our nuclear attack pad submarine back from Australia, and we're looking at mine countermeasures and how we might do that with the French and the US. So we're doing all these things anyway. We're in. And in my view, rightly so. But we're somehow yet managing to sort of constantly signal to America that we're not. So it is literally the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, I think if you spoke to what is left of the Iranian leadership, they would absolutely see us as in, and
We are.
And I don't think they would define us as a friend of their administration in any. I mean, they didn't before, and they certainly don't now. Is the Prime Minister in that sense, do you think, Tom, playing a kind of political game? He's trying to sort of appease that group of his own supporters who don't want anything to do with this, and the thought of getting into bed with America, and particularly a Trump-led America, is the most abhorrent thing they could ever think of. Trying to appease that group simultaneously. A few things going on under the surface, quite literally, perhaps, where his assistance to America is kind of tenuously happening.
I think that's right. I think there's definitely some voter appeasement going on here. But I don't, like I say, I don't really understand why you would do that. You know, when we come out of this conflict, as a military guy, it's very hard to imagine what a security construct without the US assistance looks like.
Yeah.
The fact that we've sent planners to CENTCOM is significant, because it means that relationship at that level remains in place. So we've got to stop undermining that at the political level, and that's what it feels like we're doing. But of course, as your previous caller said, it's also a 30-year problem in the making.
Of course,
it's not just political indecision. The cupboard is completely bare, and that has been a willful political decision taken by both governments over the last few decades.
And of course, our inclusion does not have to be, firing rockets off a ship, or even aircraft taking off from a ship. It doesn't, submarines with capability. It doesn't have to be that. There's lots of other ways that we can be there in a pretty key and crucial role.
Well, the submarine in particular has a vital role in terms of intelligence gathering and providing force protection to the US assets that are there. They will be sweating. They will be working hard. The Abraham Lincoln Task Group will have been flat out for weeks now. We put our very capable working attack submarine in there, and that's vital. It's nothing to do with being offensive. But should they shoot at Akrotiri again, for example, in Cyprus, and kill some people, we need options, and the strike submarine does that. And likewise, the carrier really could help operate the F-35 fighter jets that are coming out of Akrotiri already. Like I say, we're already doing this and have been since the start.
Yeah.
Flying defensive missions over Israel. They would actually be better supported by the carrier than they are from RAF Akrotiri for various sort of logistics reasons. So we could be doing all these things, and to an extent we already are. We just seem to be unable to communicate it in a way that satisfies anyone, frankly.
Yes, when you try to play to so many galleries, you obviously, it's the oldest bit of advice in the book, isn't it? You don't appease anyone at all in the wider equation. And final question, Tom, I think I asked you this a couple of weeks back. I mean, how are you seeing this panning out now? Is this a month until everything's done and dusted and Iran begins again, or is it a much longer campaign looking ahead?
Well, the Houthi campaign ran for, over a year, and really wasn't changed by very much, and that was just an air threat. That's all they had to offer, and yet they suppressed the expensive shipping to virtually zero from the start, and it never fully recovered. And strikes didn't make too much difference, and that was just the air threat. Iran has a surface and subsurface threat too with the mines. So unless this status quo changes, we're going to be playing whack-a-mole and so trying to sustain these operations for a very long time. So, as ever, the diplomatic channels and the routes to getting Iran to stop striking shipping, those routes are better. It's just not at all clear to me what they are now. So I'd inevitably focus on the military one, which I think is going to be very long and very expensive, and and very risky as well.
Indeed. Tom, we will speak again. I hope we do. It's always great to get your expert views on these things. Tom Sharp, OBE, former Royal Navy commander, right at the top of his game in the Royal Navy. Thank you to Tom. Great words from him. And, of course, David, our journalist as well, that we spoke to just beforehand. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Lots of comments on other bits and pieces as well. Stuart in Wigan, I think it's referenced, it was Mark in Lincolnshire, wasn't it, before the news, that we spoke to on restore and reform and all that's going on. Stuart says, I'm getting rather tired of these restore grifters. So these are Stuart's words. Spreading misinformation. Restore have never polled more than 2% in a poll with normal methodology. The other section also covers parties like SNP and Plaid. It's ridiculous to say this is just restore. Michael on the EU and rejoining. Rachel Reeves has a choice. We're a democracy in this country. She can either stay in her job or resign. It's her choice. Sounds like she can't do the job. I suggest she takes the second option. And before we go to a quick break, Voice of Doom. Have we got a winner? Remember, this is the voice we played you.
There's hardly any experience.
It's a very simple question. Who is that? These are some of the guesses. Peter Lilly, no. Oliver Letwin, it is not. Although Oliver Letwin has been, I think it was either one before, it was quite recent. We've used Oliver Letwin recently. I think it went on for quite a while, didn't it? Oh, Oliver Letwin was the 20-dayer. So it's not Letwin. Michael Gove, no. Douglas Hogg, no. Lord Moynihan, no. Oliver Dowden, it is not. Tony Blair, no. Tom Tugendhat, no. Lebed Opik, no. We haven't got a winner. It rolls over. It's back tomorrow for day 12. It's 3:20. We're going to be back with your calls and comments. Don't miss some of the great calls coming up your way after this.
Donald Trump has a plan post-war?
A couple of weeks ago, when he started this off, he made a speech saying help would be on the way for the people. There was going to be regime change.
He appointed Mandelson against advice. We know this to be true. If this was a Conservative Prime Minister, the wider left would be absolutely screaming for his resignation.
Government's announced this afternoon, we're setting up a people's panel to work out exactly how you want us to roll out these digital IDs. We don't want them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. This one in from Adam, who says, I think you'll be surprised by how many people were behind reform are now behind restore. Like your previous caller said, there's too many mixed messages from reform. The public got behind them because they said they were going to stop immigration and deport. Now they've changed their tune. They would say, I think, Adam, that they haven't completely changed their tune. They would say they've had a bit more. They don't want to overpromise. I think that's the point, is that it's all very well saying we're going to deport 2 million people, which is nearer the position of some other parties in that sphere. But they've obviously, as their star has risen, as their popularity has increased, I think Reform have realised, wow, I mean, this could become a reality where we've got to deliver. So we've got to maybe modify expectations. But yes, you'd be right to suggest, Adam, that I think many people would have taken from Nigel Farage and others that this was a straight-out case of a party that is going to deport. Nigel Farage even said in a speech that it's not fair and moral to do that. But I don't think he's talking about the channel migrants issue, which is largely separate to some people who might have been here for 15 years. Steve's in North Wales. Steve, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Phoning up in regards to the AI and
yes,
justice.
Is technology the future of justice? What do you make of this?
Well, one thing that's been out recently is there was a grandma in the US who was arrested based on AI recognition of her. And then she was arrested, she was jailed hundreds of miles away from home for 6 months. Then they realised it wasn't her, and they just kicked her out on the street. Meanwhile, she'd lost everything: a home, a dog.
Wow.
You know.
I mean, was there no other evidence in that time that came forward?
No, it was blatant. You could see on the picture it wasn't her. You could see, but AI, the old computer says yes. Computer says no.
I mean, she must have been a rubbish lawyer, surely.
Pass.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's happened.
So your sense is that, I mean, look, some people might counter that, Steve, and go, yep, that can happen, but lots of things used to, as technology moves forward, those kind of things won't happen. What do you say?
But the algorithm is only as good as the person who's wrote it.
Well, that's true. That is true. But then AI kicks in, you know, that's our new best friend, apparently.
Well, AI is an algorithm. It's LLM, large language models. It's, you know, I use AI. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I know AI can be wrong. You don't take what it says. You know, it's a good starter for 10. It helps you bounce ideas and this and that. But, yeah, when you're deciding people's lives, I wouldn't want it.
Do you... I mean, is that just an argument to say that you would never embrace technology to the level of it being a deciding factor in justice?
I work in IT. I've spoken to you before about the data centres, the art of the possible, and that. Don't get me wrong, I am not a Luddite, but I pay £20 a month to ChatGPT to use it in advance. I am not a Luddite. But, yeah, putting people's freedom in, you know, and they're looking to take away judges for a lot of court cases. You know, it's scary. It is absolutely scary.
But can you see a time, though, where it would, those concerns that you have, which I pretty much share, by the way, that they would be addressed?
Unless it becomes, you know, full-on, real artificial intelligence, fully self-aware, fully what? Yeah, no, because at the end of the day, it's still people pressing the buttons in the background.
Yeah.
And it is only, I'd rather have, for example, with jury cases and that, or, you know, I'd rather have 12 peers than an AI.
Well, we're going to get to that stage, though, aren't we, where the jury is decide, you know, the case is at least partially decided by, and we know that the law is one area that has embraced AI from the first.
Get it to check evidence, get it to check, you know, the lineage of evidence or, you know, pulling things together. But at the end of the day, again, dealing with people's lives, you still need, like, you need a big human element.
Yeah.
AI is a brilliant supporting tool, but people are taking it to be the future. Yeah. Everything's going to be AI.
Well,
no.
I mean, it could. I was talking to somebody recently, and they talked about it being a kind of a bit of a phase that, you know, we'll go through. People will play around with it. They'll see its benefits. Then they'll realise its shortcomings, which at the moment we can't fully see. We see some of it. And then we'll kind of morph it into a version of AI. So the big panic that's going to start running our lives won't happen. We'll just utilise the best bits and get rid of the stuff that we can't trust. Is that too simple, Steve?
Oh, no, undoubtedly for a lot of things, it does help. You know, I use it with coding. I use it, you know, with financial stuff, personal financial stuff. You know, it saves me loads of hours of trawling through websites. It helped me a lot with a medical condition that I've got.
Sure.
You know, it was able to go off and troll all the medical papers and bring back, and I was able to go to my consultant and, actually, yeah, that is, and yeah. Brilliant.
We would, go on.
But, yeah, when it's coming down to actual, use it as a support. Don't use it instead of.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, I hear you. Justin, I'm going to move just to get more comment on. Thank you very much indeed for that. Steve, rather, sorry. Thank you for that. Justin is in London. Justin, what have you got for us on the migration story? Fire away.
Hello, mate.
Hi.
My name's Justin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking me.
No,
thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in talkTV. I'm so blessed to have that. Thank you so much for that.
That's all right.
My name's Justin. I'm living in London for almost the last 6 years, and next year my ILR is coming up soon. So
this is your indefinite leave to remain, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. And when I came to this country, and that time during the COVID time, and the government was struggling to get care workers on the time. So, and everywhere is care job is available. So I was jumped into there, and so many of the people have lost their life during the COVID as well as a care worker, and the government, they're not talking about that, and also like. As a migrant, we are not allowed to take any benefits. Government is keep on saying they're taking benefits. As a migrants, I'm talking about the legal migrants, we are not allowed to take any benefits at all.
So you get nothing?
No, nothing. And no main...
Do you not get 39 quid a week?
No.
Okay. So how do you survive? So you can't work?
No, I'm working.
Oh, you work?
I'm legal migrant. Yeah, I'm legal migrant.
So you're legal, so you can work, but you can't take benefits?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I do want to take the benefit as well because my health is good, and as long as my hands and leg is working, I'm gonna work, and I'm not willing to take any benefits from the government. And the main media, they're not talking about this one because. As a legal migrant, we are not allowed to take any benefits, but they're not talking about this one. And the government asks us to pay the taxes. We are paying the tax, and I have did the stats for myself, and for 6 years, myself and my wife, we paid around more than 100,000 tax, and my friends and everybody, they played by the rules, and we are just obeying the rules.
So you don't you think it is for Shabana Mahmood's initiative proposes that you would have to wait for a long time or they would review your indefinite leave to remain?
Exactly. This is totally unfair. I think playing the political gimmicks just because of the reform.
Can I ask you? I hope you don't mind me asking. So, which country did you come from?
I'm from India.
Okay. What was your reason for needing to claim asylum in this country?
No, I'm not claiming any asylum.
All right. Okay. So you've just come here as a change of life, as it were, and applied for the usual visas that would allow you to work.
Exactly. Yeah, I came as a student, and then I switched my visa into a skilled worker.
A work visa.
Yeah, exactly. So if I stayed in this country for 5 years and in the work visa, I can able to apply for indefinite ILR. So that and next year I can able to get the British citizenship. This is what it says. But the people are talking why you didn't go to other countries because they don't have any PR or citizenship system that they're talking about UAE, other Middle East countries. Sure. That's why I choose this country because they have this system. Because if I stayed in Dubai or like any Middle East country, other countries. And for a while, and after 15 to 20 years, I have to go back to my country, and I don't have my life back in my country because I spend most of the life in other countries. If I go back there, and I don't have life in my country, so that's why I choose this country to make my home, and then I'm about to buy my house, and everything is an ongoing process. But now suddenly everything changed because of these rules.
So So you own your own house?
No, I'm about to own my house, and it's already in the.
But at the moment, you rent a house, yeah.
Yeah, at the moment I rent the house. I stopped planning everything because of this, this kind of rules, and it's affecting my family, and also my son is studying here. He doesn't know what is going on in here. I mean, and from almost 4 years he is staying here. He thought this is his home. He doesn't know what is the government is playing.
And your partner, is she in the same position as you?
No, she is working in a Eurostar, in some good position, manager level.
Okay, so is she British or is she?
No, she's my dependent.
Okay, and she's been here longer than you?
No, same as me, 6 years.
Okay, all right. Well, we will wait. It looks as if, Justin, that they may be reversing what was originally planned, which would be, of course, good news for you. Thank you very much for your call. I've got to move for time. Thoughts on Justin's case? So he's not an asylum seeker. It's a very different story. He converted his student visa into a work-related visa, wants to remain, doesn't want to go through the whole process again, and pays his taxes and is about to buy a house. Thoughts on that? Right, before we continue, let me just remind you, a chance to win those 2 hospitality tickets to the British Grand Prix, Sunday, 5th of July. One of the biggest events on the sporting calendar globally, as well as anything else. It's a Grand Prix, for goodness sake. It's massive, full racing green trackside experience, the ultimate setup for race day. You'll get exclusive grandstand seats at the Loop and Village Corners, plus inner track access to watch the drivers at the paddock. There's all sorts of other things going on, racing simulators, there's music, there's street food, everything you want to see, everything you want to experience. Let's have a listen to find out how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 20th of March 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. It is time, of course, it's that time of the week to talk technology. Head of Science and Technology, Sean Keach, joins us from The Sun. Sean, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Ian. How are you doing?
Good as gold at this end. We've got a lot to get through here, and I think we should start with something we have touched on a little bit already, the radicalisation of kids online. I mean, it comes in different shapes and forms. We often talk about social media. We often talk about iffy websites. But the world of online gaming as well doesn't escape this discussion either.
No, certainly not. So there's this thing called the Global Terrorism Index, which is not the cheeriest report anyway, but it sort of tracks trends in terrorism. And they've basically specifically called out social media, not only social media, but also online gaming as an ideal recruiting ground for terrorists, specifically because it does give them access to these young people who are particularly impressionable. So the report says that terrorist networks are primarily targeting 15 to 25-year-olds, but I mean, it says here children as young as 8 have been recorded as being indoctrinated, which is pretty terrifying. The conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine, it says, has sort of driven this radicalization as well. And I think the thing that is really worrying specifically is the fact that they said that, historically radicalization was a very difficult process. It is something that would take months or even years. But these terrorist groups can now do it in a matter of weeks and days. And they particularly pointed to gaming platforms, and not even just games in the sort of conventional way you think of it, but sort of gaming adjacent platforms. So they've named Discord, which is a chat service, Twitch, which is a streaming service, Steam, which is a platform where you buy games, and then Roblox, which of course we've talked about many times before, which is sort of almost like a game with lots of games inside it. And so they're saying that these terrorists will spend time with these youngsters in the games in a way that you wouldn't really have access to kids on a social media platform, because they're sort of playing the games alongside the kids, and then they'll sort of almost digitally rehearse real world violence, which is pretty worrying. Now I should say that most people logging onto these games and gaming platforms are having a sort of jolly old time, but there is clearly, as this report highlights, a very sinister strain of terrorist recruitment that is happening, because they're targeting these kids that are at an impressionable age, and they can spend a lot of time with them digitally, which is, I think, the key thing.
So one assumes, there you are, whether it's Roblox, whether you're playing a game of Fortnite, somebody's on there, they're a fellow gamer for a bit, then they're your mate, then you're chatting to them. Is it that?
Yeah, exactly right. So it would seem very innocuous, because I mean, if you've ever played a multiplayer game, you log on and you end up chatting to all manner of people, and often it's very wholesome interaction. Sometimes it's not so wholesome. Maybe it's some swearing, or they tell you that you're terrible at the game. But sometimes it will be this situation where they're almost being groomed, and it's not wildly different from how a sexual predator would potentially groom a child. They come in and they seem very approachable, very amenable, pretend to be your friend, and then they'll take you onto different platforms, and it starts to go down a darker path. And so there's no platform that is really safe for this. Obviously, not only is it in breach of the platform's own services, but it's obviously illegal to promote terrorism in any form.
Sure.
So the platforms are very keen to crack down on this. But again, it's hard because it sort of happens in the dark almost. It's very difficult to track. It's hard for parents to spot this stuff too, because they're not necessarily they're not on the platforms with the kids.
Indeed. Let's move on to a lighter story. And Amazon's Alexa. We always call it Alexa, don't we? But it's not strictly called an Alexa.
Oh, we do call it Alexa. I mean, it's quite old now, really. I think it was 2014 or 2015 Alexa came out, and it did feel quite revolutionary at the time. Yeah. I think some of that sheen is has worn off, as we've all had those experiences where it doesn't really get what you're trying to say. Well, now you can get a supercharged, ultra smart version of Alexa. They've sort of effectively given it a brain. It's called Alexa Plus. And it came out actually in the US last year, but from today it's out in the UK. And there are a couple of big changes. One of the big ones is that it talks like a human, and so it tries to solve that thing we all do, which is that sort of like Alexa speak way. Wow. You try and chat to it doesn't really understand what you're saying, and so you tell it to turn off a lamp and it doesn't quite get it. They've actually also kind of made it a little bit British, and I was sort of trying it out yesterday at this event, and it kept saying mate in very strange ways, and then it called something a cracker, and I was like, this is very weird. Oh, no. They've obviously tried to get it right, but I'm not sure they got it quite there. But one of the interesting things is that it now has memories, so it starts to build up a picture of you. So say like your kid is vegetarian and you ask for a recipe for the family meal, it'll know not to add meat to the meal. And if you're constantly checking, say, on like the Arsenal score, and then you ask and Arsenal is losing, it will actually tell you the score in a sort of sad voice. It'll be quite down about it if it's losing, and if they're winning, then it'll be a bit more upbeat. And then also it can act a bit like an AI agent. I know we've talked about agents before, but it can do stuff on your behalf. So it could go and actually book a restaurant for you. So previously it could tell you about a restaurant. Now it could actually book the space for you, sort it out, give dietary requirements, which is quite interesting. So it's rolling out from today. It's £20 a month, which is very significant. I think a lot of people aren't going to want to pay that, but quite bizarrely, if you have Prime, it's free. So I think most people will just accidentally end up with this.
Oh, really? So it's free. So is this part of a download to your current Alexa? Do you have to buy the new Alexa or the new Echo? It's really called an Echo, isn't it? Everybody calls them an Alexa.
Yes, it is called an Echo, and also it's worth pointing out that Alexa is in lots of things that aren't Echoes either, like Amazon's Fire TVs, and then you can also get it.
And am I right in saying you can change the name from Alexa to another name? I think
you can, and you can also actually, weirdly, with the new one, you don't even need to say it. There are some instances where it will just understand that you're talking to it, and also like you can now sort of do repeat requests without having to constantly say Alexa at the beginning as well, which will help. But on the devices point, you get early access from today if you have one of the newer devices, but very soon it'll be almost on all Echo devices except the very, very early ones, and then it'll be on Fire TVs and then eventually the web. So it's going to be.
So this is a new Echo model. Is that the thing you were looking at yesterday?
Yeah, so there are a few. They've got a new screen, they've got a new pod, so there is the whole series, and that's how you get it right away. But within the next few weeks, it's going to be on the vast majority of devices, so millions of homes.
But the new range is out now. Is that right? Because you've
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and some people will be using Alexa Plus from today.
And I was going to ask, because one of the questions that doesn't get addressed a lot on this one is the quality of the speaker. And, I know it's meant to be kind of a radio. It's not like a big, booming, nice sort of Bluetooth speaker, which is a whole separate genre and area of tech, of course. I mean, the one we've got in the kitchen is kind of fine. It's like a radio. It's all right. If you turn music up, if you had a party, you wouldn't use it, put it that way. Have they improved on that? Is that an area that they're kind of even bothered about over there at Amazon?
The speakers are pretty good, and actually I was sort of doing a listening experience yesterday with one of the speakers, and it was impressive, and it was quite funny because there was almost like a generational divide in the room of people who had heard Olivia Dean and people who hadn't heard of Olivia Dean on the demo track. So that was quite interesting to see. I thought the speaker was pretty good. It's difficult with speakers because you can go really high end. I think for the money, it's a decent enough speaker, and ultimately it's one of those things where I suppose it offers more features than you would get on a normal speaker anyway. I often think this with AirPods. You can buy headphones that have maybe better sound quality than a pair of Apple AirPods, but they're so easy to use and they have so many perks and features that I just think I stick with AirPods. And I feel similarly probably about the Alexa speakers.
Yeah, good work. Let's move to this one. I love this, lab-grown food, because we've talked about this certainly on radio shows I've done, talked about it forever. I can remember somebody saying, no, it's a conspiracy theory, there will be no lab-grown. I had a guest on, I don't know, 15 years ago, some guy talking about lab-grown meat. People saying, the man's a nut job, it's never going to happen. It is. There are some places around the world that are selling this stuff, as I understand it, but we're certainly in this for the long haul by the looks of things. What's happening?
Yeah, it's almost like cloning. It's one of those things that we keep talking about and it never seems to quite happen. But the FSA, the Food Standards Agency, they put out this report basically on future foods and sort of how close various future foods are. And actually they're saying that lab-grown meats like chicken and even foie gras, which actually you currently can't get foie gras here, they're saying it's going to be on restaurants, on dinner tables within the next 5 years, which is quite interesting. And it's not even just lab-grown meat. They talk about a whole host of things. They talk about the insects that we're going to be eating. They talk about 3D printing chocolate. But I think lab-grown meat is particularly interesting because it's one of those things that I think really captures people. And it's sort of that interesting ethical argument as well of, lots of people choose not to eat meat. Does lab-grown meat solve that? Are you going to have lots of vegan people suddenly chowing down on steaks because it was grown in a lab? Because it's a sort of non-invasive way of creating it. So you just take a few cells from an animal initially, which doesn't hurt the animal. You put it in a bioreactor, and it basically multiplies. It just grows in this reactor. It takes about 2 to 8 weeks to fully grow into a sort of.
Because it's weird. The reactions to that could be really interesting because if you talk to somebody who's a lifelong vegetarian or a vegan and ask them what their thoughts are about eating a fillet steak, they will describe quite graphic. They're almost reaching, as they say. The idea of putting a dead animal in your mouth and there's blood. If you have a rare one, there's blood coming out on the plate. All the reasons why a lot of us quite like it. But with the lab-grown meat thing, I kind of might have that effect about that. The thought that there's some kind of, it's synthetic, it's not real, it's been harvested, it's been grown. There's something about that could be a bit off-putting, sure.
Yeah, I certainly think that it's not just going to be vegans who will find this unpalatable. I think lots of people who like meat will find this very weird. And certainly there will be conspiratorial people who think this is much a step too far.
Indeed.
You know, people who think it's a big conspiracy, not good.
Two quick ones to finish on. Google Maps, big navigation upgrade in over 10 years. What are they doing?
Oh yeah, so they've. I think sometimes we take Google Maps for granted, but I can remember having to use A to Z to get to places and physically asking humans. So they've made a big update. There's two real things that you need to know about. The first is there's a new Ask Maps feature. So currently you might type in something like petrol station or Chinese restaurant, and it's not a particularly complicated search. Now you can say things like, my phone is dying, where can I charge it without having to wait too long for a coffee? Or they give this example of, is there a public tennis court with lights on that I can play at tonight? Or you could ask for very specific restaurant requests, like a cozy Indian restaurant that has tables from 4 to 7. So you can be much more specific about what you're looking for. And then the second, which I actually think is quite interesting, is called immersive navigation. And so it's meant to solve that problem of when you're not able to see where you're going properly. So sometimes you're coming off a motorway and you can't immediately see on the map whether you're supposed to be in the right lane or the left lane at the roundabout at the end. They've basically combined Street View with satellite imagery, stuck it through an AI model, and basically created a 3D map that you can follow, so you can much more easily see when you're supposed to be turning off, where you're supposed to be turning off. So hopefully it'll make driving safer and less frustrating.
Why is it? I'm a huge defender of Apple in terms of its model and all of its applications, from Pages to Notes and everything we've talked about before. But the one thing I divert from is the navigation side of it. I always use Google Maps and not Apple Maps. Is that normal, or is there something wrong with me?
I don't think you're strange, Ian. I think a lot of people do. And I think actually it dates back to the time when Apple Maps was terrible, because there was a time when even Apple admitted that it had messed up on it. But Apple Maps in the early days was awful. And I think a lot of people built that habit with Google Maps. And now I think a lot of people just go to Google Maps. I will say Apple Maps actually has improved a lot over the years, and it is pretty good now. I still really am mostly in the habit of using Google Maps, but often I'll use Apple Maps when I'm walking around, because I have the Apple Watch, and it sort of beeps.
Does the little bleeps left, right.
To tell you where to turn, which I think is quite useful.
If you don't know how to turn a corner as a human being, it will help you.
Absolutely. And, we need all the aids we can get.
Listen, final one. Great news for Sky customers. Free Disney. What's happening?
Yeah, so Sky announced this last month, but it has happened now. You can get Disney Plus free with Sky TV. So if you have a Sky Ultimate TV package, Disney Plus is just included free. You're not paying any extra. Normally it's £6 a month for the cheaper package, but now it's free. And you already get Netflix free with Sky and Discovery Plus. If you have Sky Cinema, you get Paramount Plus too. And then when HBO Max launches next week, you'll get that too free as well. So really they're doing this sort of mega bundle subscription, which is clearly a push to sort of dominate the TV market. I mean, I know we've talked about before, but I think people really struggle to justify paying for all these subscriptions. And so Sky's taking that tactic of, well, if we offer basically everything, maybe we'll win.
They do, but they also, and I've said this many, many times over the years, they do put it all in the right place. I mean, the whole interface of Sky's multi-channel system is just so pitch perfect, isn't it? It's so user-friendly. It looks the business. It looks very stylish. It's easy to find stuff. Depending on your device and what you've got, you can ask your remote control to find it. It's got all sorts of things going on in that respect. It's just an absolute joy to function with, right? To navigate is the easiest thing in the world. I've used, obviously doing this job, other systems that I find, and it's worse than doing Sudoku, trying to get your way around there to find your National Geographic favourite.
No, I think Sky is a real success story. I think you're right. The interface is good. I think they've had a lot of success with the Sky Glass TVs as well. I mean, they've proved very popular. I think they've made a lot of the right decisions, especially moving away from satellite, making it very easy to access with Wi-Fi. It's very cheap. They've got some great packages. So I think they really are doing a great job. And this bundle is very compelling. I mean, Disney for free. Who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that? Good point, Sean. Thank you very much. We will see you in a week. He is Sean Keach. He's Head of Science and Technology over there at The Sun. Thank you to him. Back to you in a couple of moments. This is Talk.
think Donald Trump has a plan post-war?
A couple of weeks ago, when he started this off, he made a speech saying help would be on the way for the people. There was going to be regime change.
He appointed Mandelson against advice. We know this to be true. If this was a Conservative Prime Minister, the wider left would be absolutely screaming for his resignation.
Government's announced this afternoon, we're setting up a people's panel to work out exactly how you want us to roll out these digital IDs. We don't want them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 5 to 4. We've got Kevin O'Sullivan, of course, on the other side of the news at 4. We'll chat to Kev shortly. This is Charles, who's in Falkirk on immigration. Charles, what have you got for us? Hi.
Yeah, it's just well, even the old rules, but the new ones, it looks like they're going to be even worse. I'm an ex-British soldier. I met my wife when I was overseas.
Yep.
We've been married for about 20 years. I've got 3 kids who are all British. I'm born and bred in Britain. Now, that when we came across, we only just came out back to the UK about 2 or 3 years ago. And now this new system means my wife's going to have to wait and wait before she can get indefinite leave to remain. Even though we've got 3 kids who are British, we've been married for that amount of time, surely they need to start taking other things into consideration.
Well, you'd think so. And I constantly hear this about people who've kind of, to coin a phrase, well, it's not even playing by the rules. It's just doing, the thing you would naturally do. You meet someone, you fall in love, you get married, you have kids, this is where you live. That's a very different case from somebody who hopped over the channel on a rubber boat, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but the rules, as I said, the rules are just not compatible with a lot of the different lifestyles or areas. I didn't see my wife and kids for 2 years because I had to come over here first and set everything up before I could even apply. I had to be living in a 3-bedroomed house before I could even apply for my wife and kids to come here.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So even though your kids were born here, did you say?
My kids were born. No, my kids got British passports, but they were born overseas.
Okay.
But they've got British.
But they're still your
passports.
kids. I thought you were allowed to bring your kids kind of wherever you want to.
Yeah, but I would have had to have left my wife, and the kids at the time were 3 years old. I had twins, 3-year-old twins.
Well, yeah, that was never going to work, was it?
No, the last time I saw them, they were 1. And I had to leave then, and I didn't see them again until they were 3.
So you couldn't go back and see them?
I could have gone back to see them, but I had to save money to meet all the thresholds for here and to pay for the visa.
Well, that must have been torturous.
Yeah. And the only politician I wrote and I tried to meet with different people, and I wrote to different people, the only person who got back to me and sent me a few emails was Nigel Farage.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go. That's interesting, isn't it? Listen, Charles, I wish you loads of luck with it all. I've got a feeling, though, by the way, that they're probably going to change elements of it, which will be correct for someone like yourself. Man alive, that is awful to have to go through that. Thank you, Charles in Falkirk. Keep hearing that. People who went to Australia, met somebody, came over here, their other half had to go through some kind of, ridiculous test and jump through hoops, and it was a costly process, and it wasn't a pay once and everything sorted. It was like pay many times afterwards. It was just an awful situation that got caught under the kind of catch-all immigration rules that you might ordinarily say, well, if someone's coming in here, we need to make sure we know that, yeah, we get that. But it doesn't seem to apply to people who've really done it correctly. They've gone through the proper channels, the proper systems, and they find themselves browbeaten every step of the way. And then they turn on the TV and they see 600 blokes travelling in a rubber boat across the English Channel. And Norman in Hertfordshire says, I would have thought on day one of the war, the supposed experts would have said to destroy the nuclear deterrent and secure the Strait of Hormuz,